I'd like to call the McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency meeting to order at 6 p.m. First up is the consent agenda. Does any counselor request to have anything removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is that Counselor Cunningham? Do I have a second?
Second.
Counselor Peralta?
Counselor Cunningham,
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky,
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth,
Aye.
Counselor Payne, aye. Counselor Geary,
Aye.
and Council President Peralta.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes unanimously.
Perfect. Thank you, Claudia. Now, as we move on, I need to declare a potential conflict of interest for myself as I own property near the RB Rubber facility, that property, but this will not impede me from participating in the discussions or taking any action on the item. So next up, we have the resolution. Consider resolution number 2025-03, a resolution of the McMinnville Urban Renewal Board authorizing the McMinnville City Manager or designee to enter into and manage a memorandum of understanding with Palindrome Properties Group LLC to negotiate the redevelopment of the property at 904 Northeast 10th Avenue and 836 Northeast Alpine Avenue, tax lots R4421BA 03800 and R4421BA 03850. And I call on City Manager Jeff Towery to present.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Sitting as the Urban Renewal Agency Board of Directors. Community Development Director Richards is not able to be with us tonight. Her report from your last work session was updated to reflect dates, and I don't have a lengthy presentation for you. The council, sitting as the board, had a robust work session a couple of weeks ago. We didn't hear any questions specifically for additional information. I do want to introduce Walt Gow, Chair Emeritus of MIRAC and a member of the Evaluation Committee. Walt, if you can come up. Walt may have a couple of comments to make, and he is also available to answer questions. If there are questions for Leland Consulting, Chris Zajas is also on Zoom and can be made available if you have those questions. The resolution before you tonight would initiate the negotiation of a memorandum of understanding that would set out the framework for a subsequent development agreement to be negotiated between the city and Palindrome. Should the resolution pass tonight, the next steps would be for us to schedule an executive session with you as the Urban Renewal Agency Board to talk about standards, terms, conditions, parameters for the subsequent negotiation, to also make clear who the negotiating team is, and to find out from the council sort of what the limits are that you want us to explore with respect to a series of negotiations. So with that, I'll turn it over to Walt for any comments that he may have. Certainly we're open to any questions you may have, and a recommendation from the committee, from MIRAC, and from staff is to approve the resolution before you tonight.
Board Chair Morris and members of the board, it's a pleasure to be back before the council. I haven't been here for a while. This resolution, Peter Kircher to my left, the chair of MIRAC, and also a member of the review committee. The process that was of an RFQ process that was approved by the council to go out essentially it took some months to winnow 8 applicants down to 3 final applicants who were then scored by the committee. The scoring process is an individual process where each of the committee members filled out a form separately. So if there is a cumulative calculation as to the scores of the 3 final presenters, I have not seen that, but I do understand that all of the evaluating persons scored the 3 applicants in the same manner. So there was a remarkable concurrence amongst the committee that looked at the final submissions by these 3 applicants. For myself, I just wanted to say that the Palindrome proposal, which came out on top with me, first and foremost, did so because it most clearly addressed the criteria that were in the RFQ that asked that a proposal be made which viewed this property as a mixed-use commercial residential concept and didn't focus exclusively on one or another of those, but provided a welcoming project that would offer residential opportunities to various categories of residences and offer some retail and commercial activity as well to welcome the public to this site. For myself, Palindrome was a candidate that appeared to be very willing and eager to mitigate the issues that were expressed and talked about. There's no secret that parking is an issue that's going to need to be addressed, and otherwise. I thought that Palindrome did a very good job responding to public input at the most robust public input proceeding that I've ever seen in my 40-some years. It was really impressive how many of the community came out and interacted with the three finalists before they put together their proposals to present. And finally, I have, my gut tells me that Palindrome is an organization which is willing to work with the city staff, and with the community to try and come up with a successful project that they will maintain ownership and control of for the long term, which I think is very important. And so mainly we're not here to talk to you tonight. We're here to be a resource to answer your questions in your consideration of this resolution. Thank you. Peter, you have anything you want to add?
Sorry, I'm late.
It's okay.
I had cattle out in my front yard when I was leaving. So,
We hear that every day.
I'd just like to add to what Walt said. I totally agree with what he said, but if you just from a financial standpoint, the summary on page 6 that we had done from the consultants shows an annual return on tax basis for that property. If Palindrome takes it over, you'll get $382,000, $500 a year. Ethos was a return of $70,000 a year, and Guardian was 0 because of their requested tax exempt status. And everything else in those proposals tracked similarly in that regard. So they're definitely, and again, we have to emphasize that this is the beginning of negotiations. So we can require that they pay 100% on the property. We can require that they meet all of the parking requirements. But we have to keep in mind that it's a great opportunity for the city, and a negotiation takes two parties in both directions. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you.
And thanks for having us.
Do I have any questions from counselors? Counselor Peralta?
Thank you. Just one sort of clarifying question, and Jeff, I think you covered this pretty well in your opening remarks, but the specific terms of the conversation around any negotiating principle or item that we'd like to discuss, that's something we'll be taking on in executive session, right? Not here tonight.
That's correct.
Okay. The only other point that I want to make, if I can find my notes from last week, there they are. So one thing that the newer members of the council have not had the opportunity to take testimony on, although the documents are publicly available, is the housing needs analysis that the staff did last year. So Eco Northwest did a housing needs analysis for us, I guess it was in 2023, and they found that the city needs another 940 subsidized housing units for people earning less than $25,000 per year. I'm told that number has increased since 2023. I'm told that the current wait list for Section 8 housing in McMinnville is 5 years. And in order to be eligible for Section 8 housing, a family must earn less than half of the area's median income. And that there's more than 2,000 people currently on the Section 8 waiting list in Yamhill County. And then that needs analysis showed that we'll need another 1,700 affordable housing units, with about half of those being subsidized by 2040. So one thing that I really appreciate about this project is the opportunity for the city to leverage this property to bring more affordable housing into the community. And I just wanted to make sure that members of the board, if you haven't already taken a look, I would encourage you to take a look at the housing needs analysis as part of your consideration of this and future projects.
Councillor Chenoweth?
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question, just in that recitation of facts that was presented, what is your source for the "I'm told" portions?
You mean that I'm told that it's increased?
Yeah.
Yeah, from the
Previous numbers to what it is now?
from the Housing Authority.
Thank you. That's not the question, you just, so I
Yeah,
have
no,
a
that's
basis
fair.
of knowledge. I don't have a lot to say at this time, because I don't want to, got negotiations that are going to take place, and my conversations probably are more indicative of what I want to say in private, but I do want to say to the community that might be listening to this, that this counselor is not in favor of handing property away for free. So that's going to be a conversation point that will be taking place later.
Nor is this volunteer.
Okay.
Nor is the MURAC board.
Councillor, I'm going to go down here real quick.
Yep.
Councillor Tukalski?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As a member of the Planning Commission for the past 4 years, I am familiar with the housing needs analysis, so Council President Peralta, thank you for bringing that up. I did want to say that while there's broad consensus, we need more housing, and this area actually does represent an important opportunity for potential development. I still have some hesitation. I do want to commend MURAC for their thoughtful engagement with the developer through the process. I think you've done a fine job there. While the developer brings a significant experience in this type of construction, they have made it clear via my question at the last council meeting that this project is not financially viable without us giving away taxpayer-funded land to them for free. And if the city is considering transferring publicly owned land that is $4.2 million worth of land, and we have a $3 million budget deficit within the city right now, I can't in good conscience say that we should be giving away land, even though there is a significant need for housing. So, Councilor Chenoweth, I am also with you. I cannot support giving away land without compensation. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Cunningham?
I'm going to start with a question. The question is, did we have, within the amount of people putting out bids initially, they didn't make it to the final round because we know who made it to the final round, did we have people who were looking to develop the land into high-end housing and not listen to the community, and that they put forth an idea of what could be done with this property, but wasn't necessarily within the vision of what we as the community needed or possibly wanted at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the answer is no. There was no, none of the original 8 or 9 applicants came in with an exclusively high-end proposal. It tended to go the other direction.
Right.
Tended to go more.
Was that because of the process that we had put forward for what we as the community were and the city were looking forward to?
I think I can speculate that people do try and respond to what you seem to be asking for in your proposal. On the other hand, I think in the housing market, generally speaking, the subsidies that are available in the marketplace are not available at the high end, they're available at the low end. And I think the proposals we received reflected that in large measure.
Excellent.
Just
Go ahead.
just as an example, Palindrome, who's done projects, a couple hundred projects on the West Coast, mostly in the Northwest. But they went from a high-end developer company to affordable housing because they can't get high-end to pencil out right now.
Yeah.
And McMinnville's particularly difficult because the median rental here is, how much lower? It's like 25% lower than Portland or any other
Yeah.
comparable
Our
city.
rents
So-
are lower.
Yeah, the rents are lower.
As high
so-
as they seem.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
To your knowledge, has Palindrome sold any of the properties that they've invested in?
We understand them to be a build and hold company.
Yeah. So they're partners,
I can't say they've never sold a property.
but in essence, they're partners.
Yes.
Their
Well,
business model, it's all in-house
Yeah.
from start to finish.
And the thing that I've been told about is that I think has been most effective in these situations is a public-private partnership.
Well, I think a public-private partnership in the sense of the development reflecting what the public is going to benefit from. True public-private partnerships reflect public equity ownership in projects. That's not what is envisioned here. What's envisioned here is a private development
Sure.
that receives some support from various different governmental entities at the federal, state, and
Sure.
and local level, but it's really a private development that responds to a public need and interacts with the public agencies in order to get it done.
And so that would be, in my mind, the public side of it
Yeah.
is seeing an investment in something that brings to fruition a benefit to the community.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so,
Moreover, remembering that you're sitting tonight in your capacity as board members of the redevelopment agency. The redevelopment agency exists and operates based upon the creation of added tax base.
right.
And this project would, of the three that was proposed, would do that by far the most.
So we had just talked about what a true public-private partnership would be in the sense that the public would still have a percent of ownership, which I would call an investment in that. And so in trying to get the best return on your investment, you're trying to find the best partner in these environments. And that's what we're going for, right?
I think so. I think that's fair summation.
So it may not necessarily be a giveaway. It may actually be an investment, yes?
Well, if the city were to decide that it wanted to support the project through some kind of subsidy, and it did that through urban renewal, for instance, urban renewal is designed to take on debt for a public purpose, and
Yeah.
there is available debt to be taken on. I'm not suggesting or recommending that in this case.
Sure.
But that may be something that this agency board decides is in the public interest before all is said and done. You're, as Peter said, you're at the beginning of a negotiation, not the end. And so if you're going to undertake a negotiation, you start with your best possibilities.
Right. We want a good return on our investment.
Yeah, and perhaps 100% return.
Okay, so
right.
we're going to move on to another counselor. Jessica, Counselor Payne, do you have anything? Counselor Gary, do you have anything? I just have a couple questions. Did we do any type of background check on this particular developer?
I have not done any background check on this developer, other than the credentials that they provided on other projects and the fairly extensive resumes they provided as to who they are, what they do, what their personnel are, and so forth, and that's in the materials you received as well.
Okay, so clarification, would we be doing that requesting that in executive session?
Yes, that would be part of the executive session
Thank you.
conversation.
Okay, and then the other thing, I just want to clarify that, yes, I think the land is a very important purchase to a lot of us up here, but that doesn't mean that, I mean, we can get that, but it may change what they're offering to the city. And that, again, is going to be part of the negotiation.
That's right.
So it's just figuring
And
out
I
how
think-
can they pay us for
I
it.
think that's what the gentleman was indicating in your last meeting, that the precise proposal they've made may not be possible without a $5 million city subsidy. It may be a different or slightly different proposal, but that remains to be seen, and
And we have every right to, we're just going into negotiations, we don't have to accept the negotiation.
I view the request for a donation of the property as in the nature of nothing ventured, nothing gained. And so I was not surprised to see it, and I don't think that the presenter is very surprised at the response.
Counselor Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a couple of comments. First, I guess, about a few projects that the company's done, and then just to reiterate some points that I made earlier. So when I looked into the company, the one concern that I have is that it seems like they've taken on some new projects, and so my one concern would be bandwidth. Because they do have some big projects, it seemed like, on their books right now. That being said, they have developed or are developing projects in Portland, a 126-unit housing complex, and a 47-unit project in the Lentz District, 120 units of affordable housing in Wilsonville, and 438 in the Gresham Civic Max project that also included 220 units of affordable housing. The land for the Wilsonville project, which was their transit center, they sold for $1, and they got 130 units of affordable housing. The $7.4 million property in Gresham was sold for $10,000, and they got 318 market rate units, and then some additional units of affordable housing. So I'm of the mind that we have a problem with homelessness in this community, and we have a problem with housing affordability in this community. And those two things are linked largely due to our failure over many years to bring in housing to meet the needs of people who earn less than 50% of the area's median income. And so this project gives us an opportunity to do that. One of the reasons why I really like the fact that it's a private developer and a private development instead of going through, say, Housing Authority of Yamhill County is that it keeps the property on our tax rolls. And so within, 15 years, the projection is that we'd be getting $350,000 a year or something in taxes out of this. So when people say, we don't want to give this money away, give this land away, you also need to keep in mind that we're going to get paid in taxes back to the city, and the whole point of these renewal districts is to do exactly what the gentleman here said, take on debt for the purpose of developing an area. So from my perspective, the real question is, what do we want to do with this piece of property? Do we want high-end housing? Because if we want high-end housing, then and short-term vacation rentals, then if that's what we want, then let's sell the property for $5 million or whatever we can get for it. And they'll put in another hotel and only that, and maybe some high-end units, and then we will not have done a thing to move the needle for the poorest members of our community in terms of housing. Or we could offer some kind of subsidy, whatever that ends up being, through the negotiation process, use it to develop a commercially viable project that will improve the overall neighborhood and add a significant amount of affordable housing. Their initial proposal would be the second largest affordable housing project this city's ever seen. And that's going to cost us something. And if their numbers were right, that would cost us about $30,000 per unit. short term, but then we'll get that money back in taxes eventually. So I think it's a good investment. I think we should be thinking housing. I think we should be thinking affordable housing, and I think this is the developer that we should be contemplating. And I understand we'll have some tense conversations behind closed doors about that, but I look forward to that.
I just want to make a comment that I agree with, that affordable housing is important, but I also think workforce housing is important as well. And I know this will all go through negotiations, and we'll figure it out what's best for this city in that, and it will still come back to the urban renewal for approval. So, Councilor Chenoweth. Hold back.
Sorry, I just had to think through what I wanted to say. I definitely appreciate the concern about the need for low-income housing. We have put an awful big emphasis with this council on funding that with ARPA dollars and through various other programs. That's why we put a ton of money into building a whole bunch out there called Stratus Village. And I do think while that doesn't meet the entire need, and we still have a bunch more to meet, I do appreciate the emphasis on that and don't disagree with you. I just want to be careful that I think your points were accurate, that what was said to us by the developer was that they put together this package assuming free land, but I think their wording was there was at least a dozen different ways they could have configured this, and this is the one they presented to us. So there is a potential for different configurations that still might yield low-income housing and not put us in a position where banking on the future, much like a credit card transaction. And so I just want to be careful. I didn't want to get into much of this back and forth now because I think it's appropriate behind closed doors, but I also wanted to express that I do think we can win both ways. And I'm looking forward to that discussion.
Any final comments? Councilor Cunningham?
Yeah, just in response to Councilor Chenoweth, I believe our last count for the Stratus Village is 600 families on the waiting list. And so I would say that as much investment as we've already made towards people who are able to achieve that housing, we clearly have a long way to go. And I think that the mix of both micro retail, restaurant, hotel, that is all going to be on the tax roll from the beginning, is a really good investment.
Councilors on my left, anything? Nope. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion or no motion?
I'll make a motion that I would love to see us go ahead and give City Manager Towery the ability to enter in an MOU with Palindrome.
Is that a motion to approve Resolution 2025-03?
Exactly. Thank you.
Knew that was coming. Do I have a second? Second from Councilor Peralta. Claudia?
Councilor Cunningham?
Aye.
Councilor Tukolsky?
May I ask a question of City Manager Tower? Do the negotiations include the potential to be paid for the land?
Sure. That's the board's decision to make.
Aye.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Councilor Payne?
Aye.
Councilor Geary?
Aye.
And Council President Peralta. Resolution 2025-03 passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen. I'll now adjourn the Urban Renewal Agency meeting at 6:29. So we're going to have 30 minutes before the regular council meeting starts. We can't start before 7. So thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
I will now call the city council meeting to order and request Claudia do a roll call.
Counselor Cunningham?
Here.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Present.
Counselor Chenoweth?
I'm here.
Counselor Payne? Here. Counselor Geary?
Good evening.
Council President Peralta?
Here.
And Mayor Morris.
Here. If you're able to stand, please stand for the pledge, and I would like John Olson, the President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, is going to lead us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to move on to public comments. Any interested audience members are invited to provide comments, and any comment provided that requires some type of follow-up will be assigned to a staff member. Anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter in litigation, a land use decision that is or will be in front of the city council, or a matter scheduled for a public hearing at some future date. Comments will be limited to 4 minutes per person for a total of 32 minutes. If you're on Zoom and wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature or chat feature and send a chat to the city recorder. Once it's your turn, we will announce your name and unmute your mic. When you come up, please announce your name and the city for which you live. And Claudia, can you tell us who signed up?
First, before we start, I do want to state for the record that we received 4 additional emailed public comments that I have emailed the council, and it would be made part of the amended packet that will get posted tomorrow. First, we have Kitri Culbertson.
Hi, Kitri.
Good evening, Mayor Morris, councilors, and all of the staff present. My name is Kitri Culbertson. I live in McMinnville in Ward 3. I'm arriving from a very close McMinnville JBO baseball game in which they were tied with Willamina 2-2. And I will need to go back right after this to cheer them on, so go Grizzlies. I represent the CPR PAC, a group of engaged citizens who have volunteered countless hours since 2019 because we truly believe McMinnville needs and deserves a functional, modern recreation and aquatic center. We're all here tonight to hand off the next phase of a project that has been many years in the making. Over the past years, we've faced delays, rising costs, and changing expectations. But through it all, we've stayed engaged and responsive and collaborative. We've listened to community members, to city staff, and especially to this council. Early on, we were encouraged to dream big, and we did. When we were asked to scale back, we did that too. What's before you now is a streamlined, thoughtful proposal crafted in collaboration with the input of this council. It doesn't have every feature we originally envisioned, but it does offer real value to the community at the council's request of under $100 million. So tonight, we ask some simple, fundamental questions. Do you want McMinnville to have a public pool? Do you want a place where families can gather, kids can play, and people can stay healthy? Do you want to invest in a facility that brings people together and supports our community's well-being? Because the truth is, without action, we risk losing what we have. The community center elevator has been broken for some time. The pool's roof leaks in many locations. And these are just the most visible of these buildings' issues. These facilities are aging and too small for our current population. And we've reached a point where delay is no longer a neutral choice. It's a decision in itself. This vote isn't a final commitment to break ground, but it is a necessary step forward. The costs of these facilities will always be significant. But what's clear is this: they won't get cheaper. The longer we wait, the harder it gets. There's no better time than now to maximize the return on investment for our community. We've carried the project this far, and now it's your turn. Only this council can place a measure on the ballot. And if you do, we're ready to stand beside you, helping to inform voters, build momentum, and shape the future together. Let's put this bond on the ballot and give McMinnville citizens, your constituents, the chance to decide what kind of community we want to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Kitri.
Go Grizzlies.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Next, we have Andrew Larkin.
Hi.
Hello, good evening. My name is Andrew Larkin, resident of McMinnville. Hope it's okay that I just read.
Yeah, that's totally
Got a
fine.
lot to say, and there's a lot of pressure, no offense.
You'll be
I
fine.
recently learned that pressure is a privilege, so I'm thrilled to be here speaking with you all tonight. Again, my name is Andrew Larkin. I come before you as a father and a resident here in McMinnville. I also come before you tonight as president of McMinnville Soccer Club. We are the largest youth sports organization in the county. We have over 300 athletes that participate in our program. Currently, right now, we have 100 athletes out at Baker Field trying out for our soccer program as we speak. It's the only facility in town that we can actually utilize for our club. Through my volunteer work with the McMinnville Soccer Club, I see firsthand the needs our community has, especially our children. My wife founded and operates a local nonprofit community health organization offering services to McMinnville's most vulnerable populations. My family and I are deeply invested in the health and well-being of our community. We give our time and resources to this community because our community deserves it. It's impossible to ignore the urgent need for repair and renovation at our parks and community centers. This is not a current reflection of management. Rather, as Director Muir's findings revealed, this situation resulted from council decisions made over a decade ago. Those decisions were made and decided not to fund essential maintenance for our facilities. That is what brought us here today. Those colleagues who once sat in your very seats made those decisions that we now have to face here today. You, council members, have the opportunity tonight to decide which way we go here. The MAC plan has been in the works for half a decade. Half a decade. It needs to move forward. Our community deserves it. The MAC PAC has answered all the questions. They've created multiple options, multiple plans. They've reduced the financial burden. They've been working alongside with the city to create a solution. For too long, the lack of investment has compounded, leaving us with facilities that in many cases hinder our ability to serve our community. The volunteer work I do through McMinnville Soccer Club is inspired by a strong belief that local families deserve the same opportunities the cities throughout our state and country have and benefit from with their modern and up-to-date facilities. Without safe and modern spaces, these opportunities disappear. These are spaces where our children learn. These are spaces where our children play. These are spaces where we, as a community, build strong relationships with each other. As I've witnessed through the soccer club, these spaces redefine a person's life trajectory. We're talking about resources that contribute to a healthy and balanced lifestyle, resources that many of our residents rely on to maintain that healthy lifestyle. Council members, the time for discussion has passed. The evidence is clear, the need is undeniable, and the responsibility to act rests squarely with you today. By kicking this can down the road, we limit ourselves. That would be a deliberate choice to willfully deprive the residents of our county and of our city, especially our children, of the basic community resources they deserve. It is a vote to deny them opportunities for recreation, for connection, and for a thriving community. Council members, you stand at a crossroads tonight. You can choose to lead in a way that addresses these challenges before you with courage and insight. You can invest in the very foundation of McMinnville. I urge you, please, in the strongest possible terms, move this forward for the citizens and residents of McMinnville.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ames Beerley and Tracy Palmer.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Morris, members of the council. Thank you for your time. My name is Tracy Palmer. I'm a resident of McMinnville. My wife and I are business owners and moms to 2 young children. When we moved here almost 3 years ago, we moved here for many of the reasons that Ames spoke about in his recent comments to this city council. The inclusive community, the visible support of the queer community, like the pride flags displayed across the city, and most importantly, the feeling of being welcomed, safe, and celebrated. These aren't just LGBTQ plus values, they are human values. Every person, regardless of their identity, background, or beliefs, deserve to live somewhere that they feel seen, respected, and supported. We are here tonight to urge you to continue the tradition of recognizing Pride Month by issuing a proclamation and raising the pride flag at City Hall in June.
Good evening, I'm Ames Beerley, and my husband and I live in McMinnville with our 2 kids. I'm here to represent a petition signed by over 1,000 people. We respectfully urge the City of McMinnville to continue its tradition of recognizing June as LGBTQIA Pride Month by issuing a formal proclamation and raising the pride flag at City Hall. Since 2020, under Republican Mayor Scott Hill and Democrat Mayor Remy Drabkin, the City of McMinnville has formally recognized Pride Month. These actions reflect the city's core values of equity, stewardship, courage, and accountability. Just 2 years ago, McMinnville was named the 2nd most LGBTQ-friendly small town in the U.S. As I shared recently, there are so many things that make McMinnville a wonderful place to live as a queer person. However, there are people who want to change that. I argued with some of them on Facebook today. And we're also up against 8 proposed anti-LGBTQ laws in Oregon alone. But based on my personal experiences here, I believe that the majority of McMinnville residents want to celebrate our queer community and the ways that we contribute to a vibrant and engaging city. In fact, celebrating Pride Month aligns with our core values here. Equity, we're committed to creating a welcoming and inclusive community for all. Pride Month is in part a celebration of the people whose blood, sweat, and tears has fostered that equity. Stewardship, taking pride in caring for public resources. Those resources can include access to mental health support for the many queer youth and adults who are rejected by their families and communities and face violence from angry homophobes and transphobes, even here in our town. Accountability, fostering healthy discourse, includes being able to share our experiences as a queer community and the ways that we encounter exclusion and bigotry. Courage, we are future-oriented and embrace change with our values in mind, with 30% of young adults identifying as LGBTQ, having queer inclusion in mind as we build a safer, more welcoming community for our children and our children's children is essential. As Mayor Morris said, the purpose of proclamations is to recognize, celebrate, or raise awareness of significant events or issues, and proclamations are restricted to those that specifically relate to the city or honor individuals at her discretion. The traditional Pride Month proclamation clearly qualifies. The fight for human rights for LGBTQ people is a significant part of our history as Americans, Oregonians, and McMinnville residents. The queer community has been and continues to be a huge part of what makes McMinnville a vibrant, delicious, exciting, fascinating place, whether we talk about it openly or not. That's worth celebrating. Making this proclamation shows McMinnville's many LGBTQIA residents and visitors that we value human dignity, we thank the people who have fought for equal rights, and we recognize that we need to both keep fighting and keep celebrating. If anyone else would like to sign the petition, please Google change.org, City of McMinnville, and you will find it. I look forward to celebrating Pride Month with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Next, we have Cheryl Shockey.
Is that Cheryl Shockey? Mm-hmm. Cheryl, there you are. I know.
Exact. I'm glad you got it. Good evening. I'm Cheryl Shockey, lifelong resident of McMinnville. I'm a retired school teacher of the McMinnville School District, and I'm an avid pickleball player. Now, thank you. The president of the soccer club was talking about the youth. Pickleball, the times that I play, it's people my age, 60 and beyond. So we're not just talking about a park and rec bond that's going to help, and keep our kids active, mentally healthy. It's also going to keep us starting to get a little bit older folks continue to be active and mentally healthy. Since January of this school year, our local pickleball club has grown by 29 members, and we now have 336 members. Do you know how many people can play pickleball at one time on our public courts? 24, if you're playing doubles. And that is, think about it. We have 6 public courts for almost 350 people in our club. That does not include all of the families that I have happily seen come down this last year to those 6 courts to play with their kids. It's just, our 6 dedicated courts are busy when the weather is nice. We need more. We need more indoor courts. We just need more space for this activity we love to participate in. What I found very interesting, because as living here in McMinnville my whole life, I always thought this was a really pretty cool town, and I haven't left. Every community near us understands the popularity of pickleball. Dallas, Amity, Newburgh, they are all building or have built new courts because they are addressing the growth of this super healthy, super popular social activity. Please, I'm asking you, please move the modified Parks and Rec bond forward to let the public vote on it. Don't let McMinnville continue to stay a stagnant community where Park and Recs is concerned. Please. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate each of you for listening.
Thank you,
Take care.
Cheryl.
Next, we have Stacy Mayhew.
Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Stacy Mayhew, and I've lived in McMinnville for 22 years. The last time I spoke at City Council was to inform you that 2 rogue dogs broke in and killed 6 of my chickens and ducks on my property. I want to take a moment to thank Madam Mayor and the City Police for quickly impounding one of the dogs, the other which has not been found, and holding the owner of the dogs responsible. The dog owner has shown genuine remorse and has been to our house twice to apologize and offer restitution. The matter will be settled tomorrow morning in court, and I'm satisfied with how the city has dealt with our situation. I even dropped off some farm fresh eggs to him and his family this past week, so thank you. I'd like to take the rest of my time to talk about Quarry Park. I do not represent Friends of Quarry Park, but I will be referencing the development poll document that they submitted yesterday to Mayor and Council. As you know, Quarry Park is currently slated for development on the McMinnville Pros 5-year plan. The Parks Department, supported by Travel McMinnville and Cycle Yamhill County Bike Club, have proposed construction of a high-speed biking facility typically constructed for use by specialty adapted bikes to include jump tracks, gravity zones, and asphalt pump tracks. As you also know, due to mismanagement of city funds for years by the current city manager of McMinnville, the city is in a deficit. The city, per the city manager and previous councils, have deferred maintenance on current city properties, including city parks, with several of them run down and in disrepair. I would like the city to consider how much a high-speed biking facility in the middle of a densely populated neighborhood would cost the city to maintain. If the City Parks Department is unable to care for and maintain the parks and buildings we already have, why would the tax-paying citizens of McMinnville trust them to build and maintain something shiny and new? 11-acre Quarry Park is an established city park that is already used and enjoyed by hundreds in the McMinnville community as it is. Currently, the city spends very little to maintain the Quarry Park green space. Simple, inexpensive improvements such as adding more native plants and trees, making paths more accessible, and clearing fire hazards are things that the community has shown a willingness to help with, and will be doing so on the 19th with the blessing of the Parks Department, costing the city $0. Improved walking paths, access areas, and ongoing removal of deadfall are relatively inexpensive in comparison to the conceptual plan for the creation of a high-speed biking facility. When looking at the Quarry Park survey, you'll notice that the community desires for Quarry Park mirror many of the desires for parks in general from the city questionnaire completed in 2023. It's clear that the existence of this beautiful, unmolested green space should be protected so it can continue to be enjoyed by people of all ages, people of all abilities and socioeconomic status, and would also be much more sensible for the city from a funding and ongoing maintenance standpoint. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ken Wilson.
Ken Wilson, McMinnville. I would like to thank the Honorable Mayor and council persons for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am speaking on behalf of the Friends of Quarry Park in opposition to development of the BMX/high-speed biking facility. I would like to address 2 points: development and maintenance. First thing I would like to present is the cost factor. The initial cost to develop Quarry Park is listed on the proposed park plan budget to be $650,000. Yet the Yamhill County Bike Club, which has been involved in the concept for years, put the estimate to build out the biking facility at $1.5 to $2 million in their March 2023 minutes. The cost would be much more once it gets started. And where's the rest of this money coming from? Couldn't the city use $2 million for a better use? The land is currently flooded 6 months of the year and may need major drainage system. Adding bathroom facilities will add sewage lines. The plan calls for a paved parking lot, asphalt pump tracks, gravity zone, jump tracks, and other developed bike trails. All of this development will cost the city money. My second point, maintenance. The current maintenance the city pays for is mowing each year. You borrow a tractor to do it. The people who use the park pick up the trash, remove fallen branches and trees from the path, and generally take care of it. Like you said, the major issue is the deadfall, but Spencer Quarry Park, we're picking that up this week. Adding a biking facility or development of any kind will require increased maintenance for the city, for the parking lot, restrooms, and upkeep of the bike facilities themselves. I attended a council workshop on January 28th, where the mayor and several of you council members commented, why are we developing new parks when we cannot maintain the ones we have? I'm asking the same question. Why, after 60 years, is there an urge to develop Quarry Park? The only people who want to develop Quarry Park are the Yamhill County Bike Club. We have asked if other locations that already have a parking lot, bathroom facilities, and are currently being maintained would be a better and less expensive place to put this. The response has been, no, that's too boring, it's too flat. We want that hill. Yet your own data says otherwise. According to the survey for the pros plan, less than 10% of people want new biking facilities and playgrounds. Over 90% want hiking, nature space, and quiet spaces that Quarry Park already provides. An undeveloped Quarry Park as a nature park with beautiful sunsets will do more for McMinnville tourism than another unmaintained bike facility or playground. Look at how the rest of the world sees Quarry Park on MapQuest. Quote, Quarry Park is a serene outdoor destination nestled in McMinnville, Oregon, offering visitors a unique opportunity to explore nature and unwind in a peaceful setting. With its picturesque surroundings and tranquil atmosphere, Quarry Park provides a space for individuals and families to connect with the outdoors and enjoy a moment of respite from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. So my question is this: does the city want to appease 10% of the population by spending millions of dollars on a developed Quarry Park and then thousands to either maintain it or watch that investment waste away? Or will the city do what 90% of the people want and maintain it and claim it as an undeveloped nature park, which would cost nothing to develop and very little to maintain? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Shannon Dunn.
Shannon. Hi.
Hi, I'm back by popular demand. I'm Shannon Dunn from McMinnville. Last time I came to a council meeting, I was filled with energy and gusto, urging council members to consider the proposals for updated facilities for kids and adults to recreate. Remember my tennis court plea? Today, I thought about gathering the tiny jerseys of my kids' soccer teams and pulling at your heartstrings with the banana bandits and the rainbow unicorns or the golden lightsabers, but I decided to make my analogy for the new rec and community center about food because it's dinner time. We are hopefully all familiar with the full meal deal at the DQ. The MacPac initially created this beautiful plan for a new community center and recreation facility that I will call the full meal deal. After months of looking at the nitty-gritty, well, actually, it wasn't a total full meal deal because the original ask had already been pared down. But for the sake of the analogy, let's say they ordered the full meal. Now, the proposal has been hacked away at so that it's just a burger. No fries, no drink, and no tiny blizzard. However, that's not really the point, even though it's a bit disappointing and feels like a real womp womp. My point is, I think your job as the council is to let the people decide. Do your due diligence to put this on the ballot and let the community decide how and where we want our money to go. To squash this right here would not be giving the process a chance to roll out as it should, but instead killing it because you think it might not be a good idea or allocation of resources in these times of budget woes. For the committee who has put countless and tireless volunteer hours into creating a good, although trimmed plan to put forth, respect their expertise on this and do the work that needs to be done to put this on the ballot. To do otherwise would be unfair, a wee bit arrogant, borderline offensive, and dare I say a bit too political. Let me decide if I want to spend my money on this. I can say, to continue the analogy, I'd still like the burger, even if the full meal deal is off the table. Get this rec center on the ballot and have the voters decide. Thank you. And when we have more money, can we please talk about tennis courts? Don't worry, I'll be back for that. Thank you.
Last person we have is William Barlow.
Good evening.
First of all, yay to the MacPac. Good evening, Mayor Morris and council members. For the record, my name is William Barlow. My mailing address is P.O. Box 812. Recently, I've heard the council members ask, what is needed housing? So I thought it might be helpful if I provide some depth to the term. To begin, needed housing is not a new issue. The passage of Oregon Land Use Planning Act of 1974 established the LCDC and required a set of statewide planning goals be adopted to address housing in Oregon and to provide guidelines for local governments to follow in developing their comprehensive land use plans. By turning next to a report that is intended to comply with statewide planning policies that govern the planning of housing and residential development, including Goal 10 and applicable statutes, the McMinnville Housing and Need Analysis will begin to provide understanding to what needed housing means to McMinnville. Notice, the McMinnville Housing Needs Analysis was amended in 2023 to include the results of the 2021 UGB amendment and the provisions of HB 2001. Now note, page 4 defines needed housing as it is used in ORS 197.307 as all housing on land zoned for residential use or mixed residential and commercial use that is determined to meet the needs shown for the housing within a UGB. Also note, McMinnville is required to comply with ORS 197.296 1 through 9 and must conduct an analysis of housing need by housing type and density. Thus, page 95 provides the housing forecast by housing type to be a mix of 55% single-family detached, 12% single-family attached, and only 33% multifamily. Moreover, page 99 states ORS requires cities to determine the overall average density at which residential development is needed or of needed housing type must occur. And page 108 reports that housing density to be 5.46 dwelling units per gross acre. Remember, page 8 reads, narrow thinking about the term needed housing, however well-intentioned, could replicate planning failures from the past. Needed mix and density are statutory components of a housing need analysis. Further, page 14 states the land base for needed housing excludes plan and zone designations that don't allow for residential use, such as industrial zones. And page 99 reads, this analysis assumes that housing types will locate in zones that permit the dwelling unit outright. In short, not all housing is needed housing. However, all needed housing is on land zoned for residential use or mixed residential and commercial use that is determined to meet the needs shown in the housing or for housing within the AUGB. The mix, density, and type of needed housing must comply with statewide planning policies that govern planning for housing and residential developments, including Goal 10 and applicable statutes such as ORS 197.296 and OAR 660 Division 8. Let me end near the beginning. Page 6 of the report reads, the city needs to be cognizant of ensuring that neighborhoods are equitable and that housing types are equally distributed. Continue to page 7 and find if households make different housing choices than were initially expected or predicted, then per statute, the city has not achieved the correct mix and must adjust.
Thank you.
For your time.
Thank you. That was all we have for tonight.
Yes,
All right, thank you, everybody that spoke, and for being here. Okay, so we're going to move on to advice and information. So we have reports from our counselors and board assignments, and then department heads. So, pull your notes out, everybody.
Let's give people to leave.
Yep. We'll give it just one more minute while everybody adjusts. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start with Counselor Cunningham.
Okay. Just want to note, I think this might be the furthest distance between our city council meetings that we normally get, so it feels like it's been a long time, so.
Could have got a lot done in that amount of time then.
Sure. All sorts. Affordable Housing Committee, Evan led us through the hopefully nearly final possible draft of the construction excise tax grant application. I would say that it was thoroughly worked through. I think maybe just a couple more edits were possibly a given, but we're feeling really comfortable that that should come to us in the next possible months. There is going to be a slight unfortunate delay. Evan is not going to be with us for a little bit here because he was recently married and is going on his honeymoon. So thank you, Evan, for all of your hard work. So. With that, then we went into Historic Landmarks Committee and again continued to work with property owners who we are encouraging to take care of these landmarks that we do have, these old beautiful homes, and working with them to figure out how best to suit current needs as well as looking into the future. And then the other one, unfortunately, I was not able to attend MCM 11 this last month. They were dealing with the discussions that we're about to go through ourselves of the budgetary discussions, but also really looking at, and it's been a topic for a little bit, but revenue alternatives in finding some way a la NPR to give sponsorships and that type of thing. But unfortunately, I was on a 1,400-mile trip to Grandview, Idaho with my father-in-law and seeing where he grew up. So with that, I look forward to the next several days with all of you.
Thank you. Councilor Chenoweth?
So my only council assignment that has taken place since the last meeting was MWACT, which featured the joy of getting to go before OTC and testify on behalf of MWACT, Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation, for those who don't know what that initial stands for. And I got to go to Salem, be in front of OTC, which is the Oregon Transportation Commission. I sat in a desk much like that one, in front of a dais much like this one, and just reminded myself of how intimidating that really is. I thought I was past the whole nerves thing. I wasn't. And so that was a nerve-wracking experience. The intent was to provide our work plan for the Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation, which covers Polk, Yamhill, and Marion County. We narrowed it down to 3 items that we wanted of priorities that we wanted to make clear to OTC we want funded as they tell ODOT what to do. Those areas were, one was the Center Street Bridge, which if you don't know, Center Street Bridge in Salem is going to start being redone for seismic upgrades. That's going to create a traffic fun from this side if you're heading into Salem. So I don't know when that starts. I'll keep you posted, but it will be coming soon. The second one I mentioned was the bypass, which got ruckus laughter and a comment from one of them that they think it might be the death of them. I think they've been listening to the desires to see that funded for 40 plus years, and they keep hoping it's going to go away, but it's got to get finished first. And then the third was 22 and 51 interchange in Polk County, which is kind of a disaster interchange that they're working on. So that's my report for OTC and MWACT.
Councilor Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. Planning Commission meeting was canceled. Councilor Cunningham talked about affordable housing, so I have no report. Thank you.
Okay, so my report is I spent a day at the Capitol speaking with 9 representatives and senators advocating for the city of McMinnville and getting additional funding to finish the paving and stormwater work on Alpine Avenue. and I'll testify again on that on Friday. I attended the April Fire Board District Board meeting where they discussed their budget. I met with Yamhill County Sheriff Sam Elliott, and we discussed many things. One is his concern of the strain on the sheriff's office and in the proposed cuts to our city department, police department. I toured wastewater and public works, which was very interesting. I thank you for that, Jeff. I met with the Fire Chief, Chief Reed Godfrey. I cannot speak tonight. I participated in the Thursday morning downtown cleanup with the Chamber of Commerce, Visit McMinnville, and MDA and local citizens. I was able to tour Empower with MEDP staff and John from the Chamber of Commerce. They have a great operation out there on Booth Bend Road producing protein bars. They have and are making a huge investment in our community and plan to employ probably over 500 people. I attended the McMinnville High School Hall of Fame where 3-year 4-sport athletes were recognized, and there were 4 individuals inducted into the Hall of Fame: John Heiser, Randy Rutschman, Gage Gubrud, and Grant Glover. I met with Chief Cord Wood, and we spoke for 2 hours on multiple different things, including budget, traffic, panhandling, park rangers, RMS reporting, and many, many more things. Saturday, I attended the grand opening of the Tool Library, where Daniel Ruiz, who worked for the city of McMinnville, him and his partner have that. And I met this morning with Commissioner Kit Johnston, where we talked about multiple things. One, again, was the budget and the concerns of the strains of our budget cuts possibly being on the county. I think that's all I did. Yeah, that's what I did. That's okay. Gary, sorry.
Thank you. MURAC, no meeting. The main issue you've heard of, where it's on our desk already. Third Street improvement, I think Scott reported on. I was in and out of service, so storm, and that's coming to us June 10th, I think. You didn't report on it? Oh, all right. It was a lot of summationary kind of wrapping the project up. I think June 10th is the council meeting where it's coming. Somebody's saying yes. All right. It's coming back to us, so we'll be able to walk through that, including proposed budgetary figures on where that's landing, and then a good discussion on potential funding sources and timing for getting that done. The stormwater hasn't had a meeting at Visit McMinnville. I'm in between meetings there, so that's my report.
Thank you. Councilor Payne?
Thank you, Mayor. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, Advisory Committee, which there's a name change on your agenda for tonight to change the name of the committee to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Committee, which follows suit with the League of Oregon Cities recommendation. We reviewed annual goals, and in an effort to address one of those goals, a letter was drafted and reviewed by the committee to increase communication with community partners and stakeholders to increase visibility. And though the intention is that those letters would be hand delivered by folks, so no cost to that. And then the Yamhill County Equity Action Work Group meets tomorrow to review some data that YCCO has collected that examines mental health data disparities between English and Spanish speakers. And I missed the last Landscape Review Committee meeting, which was a surprise yesterday. Thank you. Councilor Payne, just a correction. The ordinance for DEIAC is not on the agenda.
Oh, it's next. You're right. It's 2 weeks.
The 27th.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. Councilor Tukalski?
Yeah, I have one update, and I'd like to say it's also good not to be the mayor. You're doing a lot, so thank you. I have one update on the airport commission, and I'll just read what I took notes on. It said currently the airport operates with one full-time employee position, FTE. For comparison, the Olympia, Washington Airport, who is similar in size, employs 5 people instead of 1. They have an airport manager, 2 admin staff, and 2 airport maintenance techs. This underscores the scale of the support typically required to operate a facility of McMinnville's size, which we're not doing at this time. We're also currently looking for a new airport manager. Our current salary offering of $120,000 per year is probably going to limit the ability to attract qualified and experienced candidates. It was suggested that we should be looking more into a range of 120 to 140 to get an experienced and professional manager. Next topic, the city's general fund contributes about $90,000 annually to support the airport operations. At this time, we're currently losing an estimated $50,000 in annual revenue due to the unstable nature of the former Comcast building, which is that funny shaped building out along Highway 18. It's currently unrepaired, has water leaks, and it's not rentable. So that, if we get to address that, you'd probably have another $50,000 in revenue per year. There was also suggested that we explore a potential partnership with the county, similar to the collaboration between Prineville and Crook County. Shared responsibilities could create operational efficiencies and expand service. Also, there was the request for routine maintenance to have the parks maintenance team to keep the grass mowed out there, to keep the property in proper condition. Otherwise, I have nothing further to report.
Thank you. Are you up to our report, Mr. Towery? You're not feeling your best.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. A couple of items. We made the decision this week to repost the Parks and Rec Director position. We want to make sure we get the right leader for that part of the organization. Also happy to announce that Jenny Berg has agreed to be the interim Parks and Rec Director, along with her duties supervising the library. Also, I have some personal appointments on May 21st in the morning, so I'll be out of the office that morning, but back in the afternoon and back for Budget Committee that evening. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney David Langberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing from the legal department tonight.
Thank you. Anybody from planning? Are you?
Yeah.
Peter?
Good evening, Mayor. I just want to highlight two projects. We remain busy, but we have established the Project Advisory Committee for the Southwest Area Plan, so that's getting started. And this Thursday, we'll be bringing the Housing Production Strategy to Planning Commission and eventually to you all on June 10th.
Thank you. Chief Wood?
The police department's been working on a traffic enforcement project that the city manager's asked me to preview for you tonight. It's not 100% complete, but working with our partners at YCOM, and if I can share my screen. Apparently I can't share my screen, so I won't. We're looking at some data-driven approaches to traffic enforcement across the city, identifying the top 10 traffic crash locations across the city so that MACPD officers can focus traffic enforcement efforts at those locations in an attempt to reduce the crashes at those locations. So they would be for violations that would seem to contribute to the traffic collisions at those locations. More likely than not, intersection violations, speeding, distracted driving, and similar type violations. So we're in the process of kind of chewing the data a little bit finer, trying to make sure that we understand exactly where the problem locations are and how to best address them.
Great, thank you.
It probably won't result in more traffic enforcement, but it will probably result in more meaningful traffic enforcement.
Okay, I think Councilor Chenoweth has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Chief, I commented to you in the back, but I just wanted to put it on the record. And this is a mixed blessing, but I have noticed, and it may be completely incidental, but I've noticed what seems to be an increased visible contingency of Mac's Police Department out there. I say mixed blessing because I don't know what it is, but every time I see a police car, but I have a tendency to hit the brakes. But at any rate, thank you, because I do think visibility makes a big difference.
Jody Christensen.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? I wanted to just give you a couple of updates on some projects as mentioned by Councilor Cunningham and Councilor Geary. We did wrap up our 30% and streetscape report for the 3rd Street Improvement Project. We'll be bringing that before you in a work session on June 10th. We're in preliminary discussions with the MDA to have a demonstration block that will be live over the summer. So it would be taped off areas on a particular block that would show the community where the improvements would be taking place. So we think it's a great way for the community to interact with that work. Also, we've launched the Americans with Disability Act Transition Plan RFP that was released on May 2nd. It will close on June 5th. We expect to go through the review process and hopefully bring a contract for consideration to you first part of August, and then we'll be launching into the project. With the Innovation Campus, we're in very robust conversations with the property owners right now, reviewing the growth scenarios. So this is their property. We're working with an advisory committee, but we want to make sure that the chosen growth scenario meets the needs of the private property owners. So we believe that we'll have something by the end of May, early June. We're also in the robust part of the branding. There will be a name for the campus as well as a website presence. We're also working on the design and development standards. Once that scenario is chosen, then we'll really get into that part of it. Our legislative work is very, as the mayor said, it's very aggressive. She spent a lot of time in Salem. We have 2 projects that are nestled in the lottery bill. So we're hopeful. We won't know anything until the end of the session, which will likely take us all the way to June 29th. But if all goes well, we'll bring home some resources to this community to do some great projects. So thank you.
I think Councillor Geary has a question for you.
A lot of planning-related projects there. One I didn't hear in that update, but I've heard of something that's going and always just about around the corner. The transportation system plan, do you have an update on that?
I do not. I defer to David.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The city manager, Heather Richards, has a draft before her, and my hope would be we can get that out towards the end of the month is what we're talking about.
What was going out?
It's being reviewed now internally, and it needs to be reviewed with our, I'm sorry?
We're working on getting a consultant.
Yeah.
So a request for proposals, right, is what we're working on? He's just asking what the draft.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. The document's a request for proposal. We're in the process of putting that together. It needs to be reviewed with our partners in building and engineering, and I'd hope that we could get that out towards the end of the month.
So the RFQ will be launched by the end of the month of May.
Yes, that's the hope, yes.
Thank you.
All right, James Lofton.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here in case there's any questions on a couple of the items on the consent agenda. We have 2 projects on there that we're requested to go to contract in. Two great projects for the community. We got very competitive bids in on those, lots of bids. We have some very qualified and well-respected contractors, and so we're excited for both of those projects to move forward. Happy to answer any questions, should you have some.
Thank you. Our librarian, Jenny Berg.
Good evening. I don't have any things to show you.
Props tonight.
However, it's in part because I wanted to talk to you about some of the other things that the library does in terms of community engagement. And last time that I was here, I mentioned the El Dia de los Niños celebration, and that was a wild success. We had over 400 people that showed up for the various activities, and one of those activities was a scavenger hunt inside the library. So we would encourage some people and families who maybe don't go to the library very often or feel intimidated and for some reason to step foot in the library, and that was a big success. We also hosted the Chamber Greeters this past Friday. Also controlled chaos, just like El Dia de los Niños. We had 92 people that showed up for Chamber Greeters, and I'm sure most of you have been there at greeters meetings before. It's a lot of very awake people very early in the morning. But it was fantastic. A lot of supporters, and we, shared information about things that people don't necessarily think of in terms of the library of things, and streaming audio and video and whatnot. And we also got some shout outs from the attendees for our teen game nights. And then I attended, along with a volunteer from the Friends of the Library, the Edible Landscape Festival, and again brought some things from the library of things, so people could see, once they grew their vegetables, the things that they might be able to use, the food dehydrator and the tomato strainer and things like that. A chocolate fountain. It's strawberry season right now. You could do that. Yes, and I look forward to giving 2 reports in the months in the future.
Susan Muir, Parks and Rec.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Councilors. I'm going to start with some really good news. You may remember that in 2023, the Senior Center received a donation in the amount of $129,000 from the Glaze Family Trust, and that money was designated to go towards social activities for older adults, and we've been doing music mingle and mocktails with that money and having some great success. And because of all the activities, I wanted to let you know that we received a $20,000 anonymous donation this week. And again, that has been earmarked for programming to ensure there's social activities and opportunities at the Senior Center for older adults. So I want to thank our Senior Center staff, Erin Gwynn and Patchouli Bunnell. They are such a good standard for us to shoot for, and they bring people in and help them feel welcomed as older adults, and that's one of the reasons why we're receiving some of these donations, so we're grateful for that. I want to introduce our new Aquatic Center manager. Josh Rooser is over here in the corner. Welcome, Josh, to McMinnville. We're super excited to have him here. If you're at the pool, stop by and say hi to Josh. We're really excited to have him on the team, and welcome to McMinnville. We have replaced all 3 of the recent retirees from the Aquatic Center. Josh is the manager. Savannah Quinlan is now the supervisor at the Aquatic Center, and we have Guadalupe Ceja at the front desk, replacing Sheila. So we're super excited about the team over there, and welcome Josh to McMinnville. The not so great news is about the elevator at the community center. We now know it will require almost a complete replacement to function again, and the timeline for that work is estimated to be 10 months from when the project starts. So optimistically, it could be up and running in March of 2026, if the project is funded and the procurement process starts soon. An optimistic cost estimate for the work is around $200,000. And if you remember, on March 25th, you reallocated funding from the library HVAC project to the community center elevator project. That amount was $142,000. So there is still a gap of funding of $60,000 that will need to be allocated prior to the work beginning. So not great news. We continue to try and help those people that still want to participate in programs either on the second floor or the basement, and also try and help our staff who moves the tables up and down the stairs instead of being able to use the elevator. So starting with some good news and ending with not great news. So happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Chenoweth has a question.
I do, but it's probably not for you. But I'll ask it to you, and then if you answer it, then great. If not, then Jeff will answer it, because it might go to him. But my question would be, we have leftover money from ARPA. Is that money that we can allocate to this elevator project?
Yes.
Wow, that was a big answer. All right, thanks. We'll have that, I guess, probably have that discussion going forward. Thank you.
Councilor Peralta has a question as well.
Thanks, Susan. I have a question as well. I've heard from community members that that we're trying to do advanced reservations at the community center, that they were not able to do that. What's the status of?
Yeah, that's one of the impacts of the elevator being down, is trying to accommodate the rentals and schedule rentals, and we do not know the future of that building. We feel like the options on the table, if the elevator does not
have a forecasted fixed date is to close the facility. We've talked about moving things out of the facility. We have looked at Linfield University's facilities. We've worked with the school district. We've contacted private rentals and industrial parks to see if there's a place that we can move some of our programs to. As you know, there aren't very many gyms in town, and that is really one of the pieces of the community center that would be hard to replicate. So because of that, and while we are going through this sort of unknown about the building and whether or not the elevator will be working, we are telling people who come in for rentals that we're not sure if we can guarantee an elevator and or guarantee that we might be able to host a large event there for them. So we're trying to be as transparent as possible. It really does impact everything we're doing having that elevator down, and it's a struggle for all of us, including the people who want to rent space.
Thanks. So so you're also not renting the space on the first floor because of the elevator?
We rent the gym on the first floor, and then we have rental rooms upstairs and downstairs. So recently, we've tried to move and accommodate those that might be on the second floor in the gym if they're willing to move it because of the elevator being out if they have people that need an elevator. So we are really juggling everything right now to accommodate everybody's needs. And it is a lot of uncertainty, and Katie Noyd is dealing with this every single day in addition to explaining why the elevator isn't working and helping people up and down the stairs. It really is a struggle.
Thank you. That clarification is so helpful.
Let's finish our reports, and then we're going to have a little discussion. Geoff, on sector?
Yeah, thank you. James covered engineering, out at operations, park maintenance. It's prime grass growing season, so lots of mowing and getting ready to shift fields from soccer to baseball. Street crews out doing crack sealing in the roadways right now, and facilities is busy fixing whatever they can get to. You might have noticed the new steps out in front, or step out in front of City Hall. And then a big thing for wastewater, we got contacted by our permit writer for DEQ. So we last renewed our NPDES, or National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit, back in 2004. It's been administratively extended since 2008. So we are up to 17 years of the permit's been expired, and they just keep extending us. And this is the permit that sets the standards for that, what we have to meet out at the wastewater treatment plant for what we can be putting into the river. So they are finally letting us renew our permit. So that's a pretty big deal, and we'll be working on that this summer.
Great. Vicki from HR.
So as you have seen in your quarterly reports, I've been working on implementing performance evaluations for each of the departments at the city. So we've successfully started evaluations again with the police department and the library. And we just sent out evaluations for the executive team. So that's the next group. So excited to get started on those. We also converted our background check provider. We were having a hard time getting background checks back, especially for volunteers. They were taking sometimes up to 3 weeks. So we converted to a new company to get those background checks done, and they seem to be coming in much quicker. And an update on training for Counselor Payne. We have 25% completed for 2025. 36% are in progress, and 29% have not yet started. So an improvement from last time.
Scott, are you on the list of the started?
Does the 29% not started count as the list? Yeah. I'll just move into the finance part. We'll talk about something else. Thanks, Mayor and Council. On the finance side, letters have gone out to about 200 property owners in the downtown economic district, informing them of the DEID renewal rate discussion that will come before council at a public hearing in the June 10th council meeting. And additionally, lots of budget development work and support continues in finance as we try to answer everyone's questions. FAQ 1 has been posted, and FAQ 2 is expected to follow this week. And then over in the IS side of the world, we've been working on a grant-funded project involving city data backup system improvements a lot lately, and we've also been engaging with our partners at YCOM and the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office in the continued project planning for the shared records management system project that's coming up in months to come.
Thank you. Claudia, City Recorder?
Yes, a couple dates to keep everyone in mind. We start our budget meetings this Thursday, May 15th at 6 p.m. And then we'll have 3 additional budget meetings next week, May 21st, 22nd, and if a third one is needed, or I guess fourth one, May 23rd, all starting at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. And then on May 26th, city offices will be closed due to Memorial Day, and then we'll have our regularly scheduled meeting on May 27th.
Great, thank you.
May I ask
Do you have a question?
quick question? The budget meetings, I just want to make sure that the folks, especially in the audience right now, know that we are having a public comment period every single one of those budget meetings.
That is correct. We haven't posted the agenda for next week's all 3 meetings, but we will have public comment at each meeting.
And it'll be 3 minutes for each person for a total of 30 minutes. So come give us your opinion. Councilor Chenoweth, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, I think I'd like to make a motion, see if somebody will grab onto it for a second, to allocate the necessary funds out of the ARPA dollars to the repair of our elevator to get that back up and running as quickly as possible.
Yeah, second.
I think we're having a discussion over here. Does it have to be on? City Manager Towery, or you have something?
Sorry, what was the question?
There's discussion on the dais as to whether or not we can do what we just did, which was motion and second an item that's not on the agenda.
You can motion and second to place something on the agenda. The agenda can be amended up to and during a city council meeting. So to put something on would be fair and reasonable.
So let me restate my motion, as I am motioning to put on the agenda the discussion and vote to fund the elevator in the community center.
I second.
So I have a motion from Councilor Chenoweth. I have a second from Councilor Tukalski. Claudia, can you do a roll?
Councilor Cunningham?
Aye.
Councilor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Councilor Payne?
Aye.
Councilor Geary?
Aye?
Council President Peralta?
You're not even on.
Aye.
So the motion passes unanimously.
Now, when would we, now that we've added that to the agenda, do we do it right away, or do we wait until the end of the agenda?
You may discuss it, I suppose, exactly how you want to. I'm not exactly sure how you hope to get staff input on whatever the question might be. So, yes, you may put another motion to fund it in the way that you see fit, and then discuss.
So, oh, go ahead. Councilor Geary?
Yeah, on the subject, I think while a worthy investment to make, I don't know, I don't feel well informed to know the money that we put towards that, what's that coming from and what does that do for all the dominoes? So I'd feel more comfortable saying, hey, can you bring us back something next week, next meeting, or send us something out that tees us up to have our own discussion at that says, if that's what you want to do, this is how that would work. I don't feel comfortable right now, as much as I want a working elevator, even if we move forward with the bond and create a new facility. That's a 3-year timeline, and we need a working facility to get us there. I don't feel comfortable doing cocktail napkin math and diverting all that much money from those projects. So I don't know if I would support that tonight. I could get to that support of putting that money towards it another night when we had more information.
Mayor, may I?
Yep.
So Mayor, what I would comment on that is what we heard from the Park and Rec Director is that we're looking at an optimistic $200,000. We've already allocated $142,000. So we're looking at needing to add $58,000 to make that happen. I think that we have the information that we need to, based on that set of information that's already been presented to us, to say, let's allocate this money. I mean, if we need to give them a little bit of cushion, 75,000, let's give them a little bit of cushion. Let's get this elevator up and running. I feel like every delay that we put in this is longer that it's going to take before we have a functional elevator for our residents.
Yeah, I appreciate the urgency in the facility. Where's the money coming from? Okay, where specifically from ARPA?
Well, we have an accessibility account that has money in it right now, and it's the DEINA for accessibility, which would fit that, in my opinion. Susan, can you tell me, is that $200,000, did somebody give you a quote or even a verbal quote for that? Or is that pretty loose?
That would be Public Works Director Geoff Hunsaker that gave us that. But we are working with a, we are working
On
with.
his moonlighting job?
Yeah. Public Works, as the facilities group, has talked to a specialist in elevators, and that's how we've gotten to this point. So these are estimates now, and what we would do next is write an RFP. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to jump in, but I think there's unallocated ARPA dollars that could be
500,000.
So we've got a little over $500,000 that have, of our former ARPA dollars, remember the funds formerly known as ARPA, that have not been allocated to specific projects. The direction we got from council a year and a half or so ago was to not add new projects until we were able to fund the existing slate of projects that were approved. And so we've been holding off on that $500,000 or so. We could do two things. We could take your direction tonight to commit up to $75,000, just to use that as a straw person, from unallocated ARPA funds. Alternatively, we could go through the bid process, get a final number, and come back to you and refine the number at that point, and still target the unallocated ARPA funds for that difference between the 142 and whatever the project turns into.
Councilor Tukalski.
May I ask how much is remaining in the DEI fund?
That's for accessible signage right now, and it's around $60,000.
Okay. So may I make a motion that we reallocate that $60,000 to the elevator? Is that possible? It seems accessibility for everyone.
Signage for multiple languages and people to get around the community in languages other than English is not exactly the same purpose as an elevator.
I respectfully disagree with you.
Sorry, if I may interject, there's a motion on the floor, but there is no second.
Do I have a second or not? Yes, no, no? Okay, I don't have a second for that motion.
Then I would recommend no discussion on that.
That's fine. What I would say is Zach, I hear your concern, and I hear what Jeff, City Manager Towery said. And so what I would say is, why don't we go through the RFQ process, and then we can revisit your discussion point, Dan, at the point of the RFQ process of where that money's going to actually come from, then.
Okay. Well, any more discussion, or we're going to close it? Okay.
I think we heard the consensus of the council. We'll move through the procurement process and be back to you later.
What's the time frame on that?
So we have to engage with the elevator expert consultant to develop the spec that goes into that RFQ. We have the quote from him for that work, and so I think we can get that. I have to go double check. I think we can get that within a month, and then it would be put out for quotes or for bids. That would take another 3 weeks or so. And then we'd have to bring it to council. So a couple months before you would see it in front of you.
The slow-moving government. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on then. Thank you for the discussion, Councilor Chenoweth and all the other councilors. Okay, so we have a consent agenda. Does any councilor request to have any item removed from the consent agenda and heard at its regular place on the agenda? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilor Cunningham and a second from Councilor Geary. Claudia?
Councilor Cunningham?
Aye.
Councilor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Councilor Payne?
Aye.
Councilor Geary?
Aye.
And Council President Peralta. The consent agenda has passed unanimously.
Thank you. James Lofton, can I ask you a question, though, about it? It has nothing to do with accepting it. I just want to know, since we're in budget, is on the first one, it says it's coming out of 25 and 26, but it doesn't separate the dollar figures for me as to what amount is coming out of each budget year. And if you can't answer it right now, that's okay, but could you get it to me in the next day or two?
So is the first one the ARPA stormwater basin project or
Yeah.
the pavement patching one?
It is, yes.
I'm anticipating they will likely start this fiscal year. I don't know if they'll be able to get enough work done that will warrant an invoice. I know we have a substantial amount budgeted for this year that should be more than enough to cover if they do get to a point where they invoice it at all. And whatever they don't invoice, we would intend to roll over to next fiscal year to cover the remainder of the project.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Happy to help.
Okay, we're going to move to new business, discussion and possible action, request from the Culture Parks Recreation, which is a CPR Political Action Committee, PAC. Call on Jeff Towery and Susan Muir, Parks and Rec Director, to present.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just briefly, this item clearly has been before you in a number of forms and fashions. We want to make sure that we followed the direction of council leadership to schedule this item for discussion, so you see it here before you tonight. We've put together a staff report that identifies the potential next steps and the workload associated with moving this issue forward should you choose to do that. Happy to introduce that topic to you and turn it over to Susan for a more robust presentation before we open it up for your questions and discussions and possible direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. You've heard a lot from staff about this project, and I thought perhaps since this request has come from the PAC, the Political Action Committee, I would just review for you some of the steps that we have taken in 2025 to let you know why we're at this point. You may recall you had a work session on January 28th. That was where Director Berg asked the round robin questions about the project just to make sure that we were lined up with the new voices at the table. And then on February 25th, we had a follow-up work session to that. That was where we talked about the cost estimates, and I tried to walk through the apples to apples and how we got here, and that was a really helpful work session. At that work session on February 25th, I let you know about the elevator that had stopped working, so we knew some of these things were happening at that point. And 1 week after your work session on February 25th, we found out about the budget discussions that we needed to have to close the gap of $3 million. And so after your February 25th work session, we had some discussions at the exec team level. Everybody brought cuts to the table. It was a very difficult discussion. Parks and Rec does not have any meat on its bones to offer to close that gap beyond what we have put on the table. And one of those things was the funding that council allocated to complete the Culture, Parks, and Recreation project. And so I think, to be clear, nobody wanted to cut the funding for this. It was a necessary commitment for us to all come to the table with cuts. And then a week after that, approximately, is when the public messaging about the shortfall happened. And then again, in April, that's when the PAC approached you to say, we know that project has stopped because of the current budget shortfall, but they asked you all to consider putting it forward on the November ballot. So the question in front of you is, do you want to set a date for this to go to the election? The PAC has recommended November of 25, and then you saw they also had a dollar amount suggested for under 100 million to put that forward. So I put together some information in the packet. I think that, again, you've heard a lot from staff on this topic, and the question for the council is really timing and dollar amount and moving forward and the timing of that. And I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you. I'm going to start to my left. Councillor Tchaikovsky, do you have any questions to start?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Payne? Councillor Gary?
No questions from me.
Councillor Peralta?
No, not right now, thank you.
Councillor Chenoweth?
I do have a couple of questions. If I heard you correctly in what you just said, part of the reason I have asked repeatedly for what it would cost to bring those two buildings that we currently have up to full usability, ADA, seismic, security, and back to a usable state to give us 30 years worth of use out of these buildings. And I haven't gotten that number despite asking that for like 2 years. I'm hearing you now say the reason for that is we've stopped using any of the funds to develop those kinds of numbers because of the shortfall. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, and maybe just to be a little clear about that, the initial feasibility study did have some of those numbers in them. They might not have been exactly tailored to the current request, but we did look at that, and that's when the council gave us the direction to move in the forward with one new building on a different piece of property.
So I assume I sent an email out to the council. In that email, one of the items I had in there was the rebuilding of a 45-year-old aquatic center in Redmond, Washington, that recently just opened. So the cost is pretty, on par with what it's going to cost today. They rebuild the deck, they rebuild the liner, they redid all of the equipment, all of the cleaning for the water, and the total bill was $9 million. I want to make sure, I know it's not apples to apples, okay, I get that. I don't know how to ask this, but this has been a frustration for me because I feel like, we have a good contingency of folks that come here and tell us they really want a new aquatic center, and I get that. But there's a lot of folks that I speak to that don't want to pay for it. And so I'm trying to balance both groups of people that I'm speaking to. And I also feel like we as a city need to be providing an aquatic center and a community center. We don't have anything for our young people in this community, hardly at all. So I feel like that needs to be there. So I'm not opposed to that. I want to make sure whatever we put forward is going to pass at this point, because we've got two buildings that are in serious need of help. And I'm really reticent now, more so than I've ever been, on building anything new, given all of the financial constraints. So I guess maybe the question I really should have asked is, when you came before us the last time with the revenue forecasts and the maintenance / staffing requirements, there was $1 million difference between the two per year. Am I remembering that correctly?
Off the top of my head, I believe you're talking about the operating budget that we proposed, and that was for the larger facility. The additional pull on the general fund at that time was $600,000 for the larger facility, and so whatever the scaled down version of that would be doable, I think.
Okay, so $600,000 with a $3 million shortfall staring us straight in the face.
All I would say is if you all as a council want to change direction of one new facility at the Miller property, which is the past council action, and you want to fund that for, or ask us to bring that forward in November of '25, I would be happy, I've offered this before, to prepare a motion for you to give the staff the consensus of the council to do something different than the previous council.
Understood. I think that's going to be it for my questions. I said more than I probably should. I should have saved it for discussion, but thank you.
Councilor Cunningham?
To just a question you, Councilor Chenoweth, you listed off what they had to do. I would imagine that our current facility, earthquake retrofitting, would be a massive part of the expense. Do you know if Redmond, Washington did that with retrofitting as well?
I don't know, but I would assume that any structure built 45 years ago probably needs that retrofitting done. None of the West Coast really was aware of the potential for a Cascadia event 45 years ago. But I honestly don't know.
I don't believe it did include seismic.
A little bit of information is the Redmond, Washington, $9 million price tag did not increase capacity or add new amenities. It simply did modernize their pump, filtration, drainage system, and windows. That was done in 2020, and then they did a second phase that did include some cosmetic work in the locker rooms and the lobby and the deck. So it was the same capacity, just updated the systems and some cosmetics.
Right, it's doing exactly what I've asked for here, is just taking their existing facility and modernizing it, not giving any increase in capacity.
And I forgot to mention, it was also one floor. So I don't know that the seismics would be the same in a multi-story facility like we have.
Okay. I'm just giving.
You have another question?
I'm just giving 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Councilor Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. The current recommended facility from MacPac, how do the amenities of that facility compare to, like, if you took the community center and the pool and assume both of them were fully functional, how do the amenities of this single facility compare to the two facilities in terms of total services?
And I will just mention that Kevin Chambers is here and is the one that has done the work on the proposal. So I don't know if you would like to have him come address the council with some of the specifics. It sounds like your question, Councilor Peralta, is how does the current scenario that MacPac is developing of under $100 million compare to the square footage that we currently have in our two facilities?
Yes, I'm trying to get, from my perspective, the ideal situation would be to have a facility that replaces both existing facilities. But if we don't have a facility that replaces the full features of both, sorry, everybody on Zoom. But if we don't have a facility that replaces all the features of both of the facilities, then it seems like it would be prudent to set aside additional money to further renovate the community center, because we don't want to actually lower the service level by moving to a newer facility. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what are we gaining, what are we losing, and what else do we need?
Thank you. I think that one way to look at how our proposal, how we framed our proposal, was kind of a proof of concept. We were working back from we came up with a proposal that was going to cost too much money for most people, and so we were kind of given a money amount that we wanted to work into, and so trying to build a facility into that money constraint of under $100 million. I had a conversation with the CEO and the president of Penn's Construction today, kind of checking a lot of our numbers that were in our packet. And in that packet, the Redmond facility, Redmond, Oregon facility, they pointed to that one as being a very good allegory for a facility that could look like what we want, which has an adequate pool facility, an adequate gym facility. There are some things that we would enhance from what we have. For example, we've heard a lot from people, we want more space for group exercise and for gym capacity, as well as childcare, while people are doing those types of activities. So those are things that we would expand, and then trying to replicate as much community space as we can. Obviously, the community center has a lot of community space. Some of it's not being used all of the time, so trying to economize that and make it more efficient. So the goal was always to try to replicate what we have as best as possible and update and modernize it and put it into one facility to be more efficient.
So, follow up?
Yes.
Thank you. Kevin, do you see this facility as taking over the role of both of the current facilities? Is that
Yes.
the consensus of the PAC?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
So I have a question. So just looking, just the budget, I think you got it under 100 million, which thank you for doing that. A little concerned about the square footage price, which I know we can define later when we actually get a plan, but it is significantly higher than these other projects.
Yep.
So with that in mind, I would hope that we could maybe not spend all the money that might be allocated to that. I am in a position as the mayor of this city with a very, very large deficit and was not part of getting it here. And I don't mean that as disrespectful to anybody else. I'm just telling you how I am, and concerned about spending additional money of the city and looking at there's $150,000 to get it on the ballot. And then there's a request of $100,000 for communication, and that doesn't include any of the staff time. Do we have any idea how much staff time this will cost? Anybody?
In the staff report, we tried to let you know that this would be, if you put this on the ballot, this would need to be a priority for several positions across the city, from the attorney to the recorder. I don't actually anticipate that it would be a lot of time for the staff that are already existing in the city. And then the money that would be required for the bond counsel and the municipal advisor, we could roll that into the cost of the bond. So that would be reimbursed. So I think, I don't know how many hours of each, of David Leitenberg's time it would be in those sorts of things. We could try and take a stab at it, but my guess is Claudia will bear the brunt of that to some degree and need to prioritize her work accordingly. And we'll figure it out. If the council wants this to be a priority, I think the staff report clearly says that the city would align behind it.
So I appreciate the fact that it can be thrown into the bond and paid back, but if the bond doesn't pass, we're still stuck with that dollar figure. And with already being $3 million in a deficit and a lot ahead of us in the next 2 weeks, my thought process is I absolutely think we need a facility. I don't have any qualms over that. I also think that the voters have the right to make the choice and live with the tax base that goes along with that. But my concern is the fees up front and where are they going to find it? So my proposal, just my proposal, I'm not making a motion, is that we let the budget committee look at it next week and see if we can find the money to do it. And if they can find the money within the budget, then, and the council agrees, I have no problem with that. But I feel like we have to find it first.
Mayor, if I could correct one thing I just said from the staff report. I did go back and review the contracts with the bond counsel and the municipal advisor. If the bond measure does go forward on the ballot but does not pass, we will not be charged for those two consultants' services. So if we do get charged for it, it will be rolled into the bond. If it doesn't pass, we would not get charged.
So we'd still be responsible for the $150,000 to put it on the bond.
Correct.
And I do have a problem. I don't agree with the $100,000 for communication. That is totally off the table for me. That's just my opinion. Anybody else? And I thank you for all the work that you've done and listening to us. And please don't think I don't support a new facility. I'm just feel like I'm in a really hard spot.
How would the budget committee task work? How do you foresee that working?
How do I what?
How do you foresee the budget committee's task working
we have to-
when we're on for Thursday
foresee-
and next week? And
I foresee this budget committee having to go line item to figure out where the money's been spent and where it needs to be adjusted over the last previous budgets and this budget. And knowing in mind that can we find this amount of money saving somewhere that can be designated to this particular project? It's going to be a task.
I
The whole
understand.
budget's going to be a task, so I hope we're all up for it. But it doesn't mean it can't be there. It's just where is it going to be? Councilor Peralta.
Thank you, Mayor. I am in favor of moving the project forward. I think we need to upgrade the community center. I don't think it makes sense to continue putting money into the two buildings that we have. So I'm favorable to that. I would be favorable to using at least some of the remaining unallocated ARPA funds to help cover some of these costs. Yeah, I guess I'm open to having the conversation about it during the budget process. I think that does make some sense, but I would also be prepared to vote on this sooner than that.
yeah,
Councilor Tukalski.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm actually not inclined to vote on this tonight. I would like to see that it's pushed to the Budget Committee so that we could find the dollars. I do know and do support that we need a new facility, but I also want to make sure that we're being responsible with the taxpayers' funding and make sure that we can allocate this correctly within the Budget Committee.
Councilor Geary.
I guess I would see the suggested motion in the consideration packet to direct staff to bring forward the framework to get this back would actually work to serve as the charge for the budget, and we can then use that to charge the Budget Committee with that task of those specific dollars. I don't think this motion tonight needs to wait until that's found. I think that codifies that, and I think we need all of this help to have this discussion and move this process along. I wish it was easier. Not too long ago, the unanimous council goal was the only unanimous council goal was to push this project forward. It doesn't get easier as time goes on. This, even if we are able to perform magic during the budget process, we're going to be continuously in a budget cycle of deficit and rolling things back. I don't represent a community that's going to close a community center. I don't represent a community that's going to close the aquatic center, and this is leading us to that path. We need to put staff back on track. We need to put ourselves in the position to lead the community on that, and we need to put it to the voters. They will decide. If they tell us no, we have our charge.
I'm a little concerned that you think we're going to be deficit, and that we're going to take on 600,000 more into the general fund. That's super concerning to me.
We have seen initial operating costs for a new grand facility, and we know that we have work to do on that operating cost. If we put it to the vote and the community brings it back, maybe as part of this, we need to explore an operating levy. If the community gives us the charge to put this on, we still have time to work through how it will operate. What are the fees? What do we need to do to make it balanced? How can we come up with that operating task?
That is true if it goes on there. I'm just not willing to, I want it to go to the Budget Committee. I am not a person that spends money we don't have. That's just my opinion. It's a council vote. That's my opinion. I'm not saying against it. I'm just saying I need to be fiscally responsible. Councilor Chenoweth.
I think Dan had his hand up first, so do you want to go first?
No, go ahead. I'll play a rookie here. You got it.
Okay. So a couple of things, Mayor. In my research of gathering information, because I wanted more information, I called the head of the district in Redmond, Oregon, and had quite an extensive conversation with her about what happened out there. They put their bond up multiple times before it finally passed. I think it took 5 tries. Somebody else told me 10. I don't know if that's true. What I understood was 5. They have twice to date put up a levy. Both times it has failed. I asked the district director why she thinks the levy has failed. In her take was that residents in her area, and she feels like it's probably true across a large swath of our population, feel like government should be working within their means the same way everybody else is having to work within their means. And giving them more operating money to just take care of the day-to-day is not something it's harder to accomplish than giving a government money to build a project. So that's why they got funded for a bond but couldn't get funded for a levy. And for clarity, the first time they went for the levy, they lost by 5 or so percent. The second time they went for the levy was much worse. So it didn't get closer, it got further away from being able to be accomplished. I'm with you, Mayor. I'm really concerned. I feel like part of this is like the conversation I had with my daughter when she got her driver's license. She's like, I want to go get a brand new car. And I said, well, do you have the money for that brand new car? And she said, no. She said, well, then, but I have enough money, I can buy this car. It's only 5 years old, 7 years old, whatever it was. And I said, well, do you have the money for the maintenance for that car? And she said, well, not really. And she ended up with a 15-year-old Mazda 3. And I think we're kind of having that conversation here. We have a problem with coming up with the cost for the building. We have a problem with coming up with the cost for the maintenance. We're in a position that is not one that is really good, and until we hear more from the Budget Committee about what our real position is going to be once we get through all this, I'm with you, Mayor. I can't, at this point, vote in favor. I need more direction on what we're going to cut, what it's going to look like, where the money's going to come from, and I certainly am not interested in, I came before this same body and asked for something to be put on the ballot and was told, given my marching orders, was told that if there was actual desire to get it on the ballot, then I could gather signatures. I would like more information. I'm certainly not going to pay for communication willingly, given our budget.
Councillor Cunningham?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a couple of the things that have been talked about here tonight. And the one that's really sticking out to me is something that Councilor Chenoweth and the mayor and I all were in the Capitol early on. And one of the favorite stories that Senator Starr likes to talk about is the renovation of the Capitol. And as best I can tell, and just some quick pulling up, in 2013, they considered building a new Capitol. And the price tag in 2013 was between $127 million and $145 million to build a brand new Capitol. This article was written in 2015, and the first sentence says, would you spend $337 million to redo a cake that has a bowling trophy on the top of it, referring to the Capitol? Current search for the current renovation cost, which is not complete, is $598 million for a renovation of a building that was not meant to be standing today. And everybody who works in it complains about it. And I'm sure it's a story that Councilor Chenoweth has heard many, many times because it is a misuse of taxpayer money to try to fix something that amounts to a birthday cake. And the reason that we are in a current deficit and looking at these holes is not due to the lack of the work of the Budget Committee and the councils before us. But what is ahead of us is putting forth a community in which I am honored to be a part of. I do not take these decisions lightly. I understand the impact to our community and those who have put us here. But in a night where a motion was put forward to put $60,000 of ARPA money or $60,000 of DEI money on the table like that, and you want to push so that the budget committee can do the hard work that it is going to do, seems disingenuous.
So what we could do is do a motion to approve it in contingent that we find the funds at the budget committee. That is one option.
Mayor, I have not yet had a chance to speak.
Oh, sorry.
May I?
Yep.
I'm not as emotionally invested in this as some folks on this dais, but I appreciate your emotions because I know you've been there since the beginning, as is someone that I know dearly. And you put a lot of time and effort into this stuff. It's been going for almost, 6 years? 5 years? 6 years? Yeah. What's 2 weeks going to change? Can we wait 2 weeks to go find the dollars? 2 weeks over 6 years? That's all I'm asking. It's not hard. Nothing else.
Councillor Payne.
Thank you. Does anybody in the room know what the 2 weeks would cost us?
I think it still keeps us on the right time frame. Am I correct, Kevin? Because you had
I would defer to council and the city manager on that.
So Susan, to reflect back on the time frame and the steps we have to do, I know the deadline's not in 2 weeks, but it compresses the work that we would need to do.
Yeah. And I would just point to some of the dates are on page 58 and 59 of your packet and what would be required. What we need to do is start the work with the bond council and the municipal advisor to start framing the language and the path forward and determining what the finances are for a bond. Yeah, I think we have it all laid out in here. We have a short timeline. That's one of the reasons why the PAC has come forward now, is because if we let this timeline go, November is off the table. And so I'm not comfortable weighing in on whether or not 2 weeks makes a difference. I think this project has not had that type of timeline, any type of timeline, really. We just keep coming back. And so I think that's part of it, is looking for consensus about whether or not this council, and I think what the mayor said is if this council is in favor of putting it forward in November and the budget committee finds the money in the next 2 weeks, then that could be a solution to knit them together.
So to that end, is there room on our May 27 agenda? I mean, without it being another 10:30 meeting.
As of right now, I believe there's very little on that agenda, and it's going to stay a light agenda, so we can place it on that agenda.
Okay. I share sentiments with all the counselors and the mayor. And like Councilor Tukalski, I also value kind of the emotions and the investment that have been made in the project, and Kevin, your work and your committee's work and your persistence and keeping this project in front of us. I guess I also feel like it should go to the voters for a decision to be made, because at the end of the day, it is their money. The $100,000 is their money. And we've heard a lot of comments, and the PAC's worked really hard to make significant progress on making it affordable and making it an option that can work for our city. I am also conflicted that, with Councilor Chenoweth's comments that, Redmond, Washington made improvements to their facility. I don't know if there's potential to offer voters like vote to improve and spend 15 million or vote to spend 100 million. In a perfect world, they would be able to vote for one option, and as in the words of Councilor Geary, that would give us the charge. I am okay voting tonight on whether to give guidance if that's necessary. But I also understand that there's real financial concerns, but also I think about, we have undedicated ARPA funds left over, and at the end of the day, we may need those.
Councilor Chenoweth was next.
Yeah, a couple things. First, I was remiss in not saying I do appreciate all your effort. I know you've put in a tremendous amount of time, of your own time and effort to do this, and I should have said that up front, and I didn't. So forgive me for not saying it, and thank you for what you've done. I also want to really convey, I said it once, but I want to make it really clear so that it's not misunderstood. I do believe we need a working pool. I do believe we need a working community center. We are going into a 20-year window. I mean, I think you corrected me the last time, Councilor Peralta. I said 10 years left, and it's actually 20 years left of a PERS crunch that is facing our budget. And so I'm really, and after getting the news we're $3 million in the hole, when I added all this up, where I came to is I'd like to repair what we have, get 20 more, 30 more years at it. I wouldn't even mind having a bond that includes buying the Miller property so that we're making the investment to actually do this down the road. I just feel like right now, given all the constraints, all the problems that we're facing financially, it's just not fiscally sound policy. So that's where I'm standing.
Councilor Tukalski.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We walked into a budget disaster, and we're $3 million in the hole. We don't have money. We continue to propose deficit spending. All I'm asking is that we wait 2 weeks and ask the budget committee to go find the money somewhere. I really don't think it's that big of a challenge. If we want to spend this money, which obviously it's very apparent the city wants a new facility, then let's go find the money for it. Cut something else, keep it balanced. But right now, the proposal, just a deficit spend, continues the behavior that got us into this mess in the first place. And I don't agree with just pushing it forward. So I don't know if we have to make a motion for that. If I do make a motion for that,
Let me let Councilor Geary speak before
it's fine.
Motions are made. Councilor Geary?
I think one thing to consider, and I've never been accused of being a patient man, so the one thing I think is in argument against waiting 2 weeks and going through the budget conversation is that's 2 of Susan Muir's remaining 2.5 weeks here. And we risk losing all of that knowledge with that. If we can direct staff to work on this, it does not commit us to putting anything on the ballot in November, doesn't commit us to spending the money yet. We still can work through those issues, but now we get Susan engaged in the remainder of her time here, and that is the incalculable cost. I think we should be moving forward with option 1 here tonight.
Excuse me, Mayor, can I just interject? Yep. So I would suggest to you that the motion as written identifies the necessary framework and required city council actions. I interpret that in part to mean the budget authority to fund the things that are necessary to fund to put a measure on the ballot. This isn't putting a measure on the ballot. It's to start to pull together all of those tools and resources. What I would do if this motion were passed tonight is I would make sure that a discussion about how to pay for a bond election and any other initial out-of-pocket costs would show up on a list for the Budget Committee to consider over the course of their meetings or the next week and a half or so. So that budget work would have to be part of that necessary framework, if that helps provide clarity. That's some of the work that we would do.
But if we vote on it in that context, what we're doing is telling the Budget Committee, we are doing this, right? And so then it becomes chiseled in stone, make room, it has to happen, as opposed to letting it go to the Budget Committee and having a discussion to see if we can make it work, how we can make it work, without kind of the council's pressure to make it happen. Right? Am I understanding that correctly?
This is a council prerogative, how and when you want to get the work done.
Councilor Peralta.
Yeah, I think that analysis is correct. I mean, I think what they're asking us for, Councilor Chenoweth, is to give direction to staff, give direction to the Budget Committee to find the resources to put this on the ballot. And I don't see why we wouldn't do that. Jeff's suggestion to put together something for the Budget Committee to look at and consider, I think would be very useful for our conversations in light of what Councilor Tukolsky is looking for, which is a conversation to go and find that money. So I'd be in favor of moving this measure tonight, knowing that what that's doing is directing the staff to begin the work, directing the Budget Committee to identify the $150,000, and I don't know how much more we're gaining from sort of repeating the same positions. I understand you want the pool and you want a working pool and these things, and you don't want to pay the cost of building new. So, I mean, we don't need to rehash these points, but I do think we need to move the conversation forward. And this proposal does that.
Councilor Gary.
Can I call a motion?
Yes, be very specific in your motion, please.
I move to direct staff to bring forward the necessary framework and required city council actions. You're rubbing off on my words. City council actions to put a general obligation bond in alignment with the CPR PAC recommendation of a project under $100 million on the ballot in November 2025.
Second.
Claudia.
Councilor Cunningham?
Aye.
Councilor Tukolsky?
Nay.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Nay.
Councilor Payne?
Can I ask a question? Do I have to vote before I ask another question?
There should not really be more discussion
Okay.
upon the call for a roll call.
But I really didn't give enough.
Aye.
Councilor Geary?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Aye.
The motion passes by a vote of 4-2.
Sorry. Make sure. Claudia moved me around here, so I need to. Consider resolution 2025-17, a resolution authorizing the termination of an intergovernmental grant agreement between the City of McMinnville and the Oregon Department of Transportation for the Safe Routes to School, which is Sue Buell Elementary and Patton Middle School pedestrian safety projects. GF Hunsucker?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So this one's a little different because we're actually asking for approval to terminate an IGA. Back in 2022, the city submitted a grant application for a Safe Routes to School project. We received that grant for an award of $938,000 with additional city match of $234,000. We moved forward, got that IGA signed. Once we got into the scoping of that project and further discussions with the railroad, they informed us that the pedestrian crossing there at the rail crossing was not maintenance. It was an improvement, which triggered a whole litany of rail crossing improvements. So what we thought was going to be a couple $100,000 ended up jumping up to $1.2 to $1.8 million. which was more than the original costs. And so we can't remove that pedestrian crossing from the project because of the way the grant application was written. We had it's a major part of the grant. And so the city would have to come up with that additional $1.2 to $1.8 million to do that. We don't recommend doing that at this time based on the funds we have for SDCs for that area. So we're requesting to terminate the grant. If we do it now, we can do it at no cost. We haven't spent any of the money yet. If we had moved forward and spent some money, we would have had to pay back ODOT for all the money that we spent. We remain eligible to apply for a new grant, and the SRTS grants have just jumped up to $3 million. So they are more in line with the amount that this project would cost. The project still remains a priority for us. The last thing we really need to figure out is the maintenance. It's a UP line. UP has some pretty rough maintenance requirements. We're talking to some other municipalities and some other consultants trying to figure out how to possibly get around that. We were actually discussing that at lunch today about maybe checking with Albany. They had a similar situation. So anyway, right now we're asking the council to approve the resolution that terminates the agreement, and then staff will continue to keep finding a way to move forward with this project in a more fiscally responsible way.
Great, thank you. Councilor, questions?
I do have a
Councilor
question.
Tukalski?
Is it currently unsafe for children?
Is it currently unsafe for children?
Yes.
Yes, it is unsafe for children currently. They're walking along the north side of Booth Bend Road there. There's not.
Is there anything else we can do to make it not so temporarily until we fix it?
Not at the rail crossing. The city could move forward with a project on that north side of Booth Bend, but we'd have to put together a scoped capital project and bring it to the council and everything, so.
Yeah, I'm sure we don't have money for that, so thank you for answering.
Councilor Peralta?
So that property on, the area on Booth Bend runs alongside the nature trail at Linfield campus.
Correct.
The nature trail's on one side of the fence, and then the ditch that I guess would get improved as part of this project is on the other side of the fence.
Correct.
And Linfield's going through the process of transacting, or, I think they're maybe interested in selling their parcels. And what I was wondering is, would it be possible for the city to pursue an easement with Linfield on the nature trail portion of that property? And then essentially just use the nature trail, and then you'd need another exit at the other end of it, but as a walking path from Sue Buell to.
Happy to reach out to them to discuss a public access easement that could potentially use that trail as an interim step until that road is redeveloped through development or a city project.
Yeah, I think I would appreciate that. And then if, as part of those conversations, that nature trail is pretty well shaded with 30, 40, 50-year-old trees. And, if we could preserve that infrastructure through whatever processes they're considering, that would be really nice.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
That's more of a thing for planning department, but you guys remember that.
Councilor Chenoweth?
When you said it went from being, what did you say? It went from being maintenance to being.
Yes, so we've done similar at other rail crossings here in town where it was asphalt and we swapped them out for the concrete panels. And that's what we assumed was going to be, or what our consultant assumed was going to be allowed, because there was an existing head crossing. They were just walking across that, but they considered it a whole new crossing that doesn't exist. So
that's where I'm getting.
That's the railroad. UP.
Railroad made that call.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they kind of get to make every single call when it comes to the railroad.
Yeah, I get it. I just didn't know where that was coming from. And question on the redirect, doesn't that still have to cross the railroad tracks, though?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But the rest of the walk is also.
Okay, gotcha.
Counselor Cunningham, did you have a question?
No.
No, okay. Anybody else? Do I have a motion?
I move it's weird to say pass because pass resolution 2025-17, a resolution in Florida authorizing the termination of the intergovernmental grant agreement between the city of McMinnville and Oregon Development Department. Jesus, sorry.
Motion from Counselor Cunningham, a second from Counselor Chenoweth.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Payne?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
And Council President Peralta.
Aye.
Resolution number 2025-17 passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to ordinances. I need to recuse myself from the following item, ordinance 5159, as I have an actual conflict of interest with my husband being a real estate broker. Council President Sal Peralta will lead the council through the agenda item for the second reading.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll now consider the second reading of ordinance number 5159. As the City Council will recall, the ordinance did not have unanimous support at the April 22nd meeting, requiring a second reading to be conducted tonight. Does any councilor need to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest or recuse themselves regarding this ordinance? Does any councilor wish to make any disclosure or abstain from participating or voting on the application? Does any councilor need to declare any contact prior to this meeting with the applicant, any party involved in this application, or any other source of information outside of staff regarding the subject of the application? Councilor Chenoweth.
Just question for clarity. I declared it the last time when we had the first vote. I don't need to re-declare it again, correct?
You're good.
That's correct. This is particularly for new contacts.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? I will now call on Evan Yepis, the Associate Housing Planner, to present any additional information.
There's no additional information, so if it's helpful, I can provide a summary of the request again, but otherwise, my understanding was just moving forward with the second reading.
Great. Does any counselor have any other questions for staff? Counselor Payne.
Thank you, Council President. Maybe this is a conversation to have with our land use attorney, but my question on a very basic level is, why are we reviewing this if our hands are tied by ORS 197A348? Like, we don't, based on what was presented in the last council meeting, and the revised statute of chapter 197A is, if we vote against this plan, then it could go to LUBA. And the city would likely not win. So I guess in totality, why are we reviewing this, and why is it worth our time to review it if the decision's already made for us by state statute?
So really the review criteria is in our municipal code in 1774-20, and we went through the review criteria there with, there's the criterion A, B, and C, and so it's the consistency with that, which includes comprehensive plan goals and policies, so it's still following that process.
Yeah, but those become irrelevant when this ORS supersedes all of that policy guidance and giving consideration to all those specific details. Is our land use attorney on? No. Okay.
No. In order to give a more comprehensive answer to that, we're going to need to field it outside of this venue at this moment. We're happy to consult with our land use attorney and get back to you, but that's a broader question than I think what we've got here right now.
Thank you. I'm prepared to vote. Eventually I would like to know why the council time is worth this when the state already made up our mind for us.
We'll try and get you a more comprehensive answer to that question.
Well, I don't think, if I might, I don't think technically the state has made up our mind for us. We could still vote no. There's just consequences to if we vote no. Potential expensive, not necessarily actual, but potential expensive if we lose.
Okay, thank you for that context. Unless any member requests otherwise, I will ask City Attorney Lightenberg to read the ordinance by title only.
This is the second reading of ordinance number 5159, an ordinance approving a comprehensive plan amendment and zone change from an industrial designation to a residential designation and M1 zoning, light industrial, to R4, medium, high density, 5,000 square foot lot residential zoning for property of approximately 5.8 acres located at 2320 Southeast Stratus Avenue, tax lots R4427000600 and R4427000604, docket CPA 1-24/ZC 4-24.
Thank you, Mr. Lightenberg. I have a question, a clarifying question, Attorney Lightenberg. So in this case, we're going to ask for a motion, ask for a second, then take discussion, further discussion, or do we go straight to a roll call vote at that point?
There can absolutely be further discussion on the motion.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 5159?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, moved by Councilor Geary, seconded by Councilor Chenoweth. Is there conversation on the motion?
I just have one thing. I'd really love to know how you're going to get that easement between the building and the fence line. That's it. But you can tell me that later.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, hearing none. Claudia, can you please poll the council?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
I stand by my previous vote. I still don't think it's responsible. Nay.
Counselor Chenoweth?
I stand by my previous vote of being in favor of private property rights. Aye.
Counselor Payne?
Nay.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Aye.
Ordinance number 5159 passes by a vote of 4-2.
Thank you, Claudia. I will now return the meeting to the mayor.
We're going to consider the first reading with a possible second reading of ordinance number 5156. Does any counselor need to declare an actual or a potential conflict of interest or recuse themselves regarding the ordinance? Okay, we'll now consider the matter of ordinance 5156. Does any counselor object to hearing the ordinance read by title only? Okay, hearing none.
This is the first reading of ordinance number 5156, an ordinance amending Title 17 zoning of the McMinnville Municipal Code to Chapter 17.57 landscaping and approving the decision, findings, and conclusionary findings for docket G 2-24.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion? Are we going to have a presentation? Sorry. It's from Taylor.
Tom is going to be presenting.
Tom.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Thank you. This was originally on your April meeting agenda that ran a long meeting that night, so it got moved to tonight. So I'm filling in for Taylor, who's out of town tonight.
Sounds good.
This is to consider ordinance 5156. It's in your packets referred to as the phase 1 of docket G 2-24, which is proposed amendments to the landscape chapter of the zoning ordinance, chapter 1757. So predominantly this is about improving efficiency of our land use review procedures through essentially providing greater efficiency in how those are processed, making it more clear about what applicants need to submit when they submit an application, and then through this streamlining the timing of the review process. So the key components of the proposal are essentially to establish a two-part review process. Right now, all landscape plan applications go to the Landscape Review Committee. This would split that into two processes. One for the kind of basic applications would then be administrative instead of going to the committee, and there would still be a path for a discretionary review that could go to the Landscape Review Committee. Again, the submittal requirements would be clarified to make this just easier on everybody to know what the expectations are of what needs to be on the plans to do a complete review efficiently. And I'll provide a little bit of additional background information about the procedures this went through. It did go through the Planning Commission for recommendation, and initial proposal came back to council in January as well. So when this went to the Planning Commission, it was back in November. They had a unanimous vote to recommend approval of this to council following work that staff had already done with the Landscape Committee, who was also supportive of this work. This does support the council goals in your strategic plan of growth and development character, as well as city government capacity to strengthen the city's ability to prioritize and deliver services with discipline and focus. The planning department's gone through a planning fee study back in 2023. That analysis determined that there would be approximately $15,000 in savings of efficiencies in changing this to predominantly an administrative review process and how these are reviewed. Again, this is a legislative land use matter, so essentially this needs to be consistent with the comprehensive plan policies and the purpose of the zoning ordinance. Largely, this is a procedural amendment, a code to the procedures of the zoning ordinance, so there's quite a bit of policy discretion without a lot of narrow kind of sideboards and specific policies in the comp plan or zoning ordinance that need to be addressed. Essentially, again, this is phase 1 of proposed amendments to the landscape chapter of the zoning ordinance. Again, there's sort of three major objectives here of reducing the time in reviewing projects, providing for administrative provisions to make sure we have everything we need to process an application, and then clarifying what's needed. So in terms of reducing delays, right now, again, all the applications go to the Landscape Committee to review. That, as you can imagine, means convening the committee, scheduling meetings, preparing staff reports, and if this could be done administratively, it's a streamlined process. Again, if as we move towards this proposal, there would be a phase 2 that would be coming to you as well to look at some of the standards, again, to try to make things more clear and objective and make sure everyone's on the same page as to what's required in terms of the standards when applications come in. And this process sets the stage for the procedure so that there would still be an administrative review that would look at clear and objective standards. And there would still be the availability for a discretionary review process for applications that could go to the Landscape Review Committee. Currently, most land use applications have a completeness review period where an application's reviewed. If there's something missing, it needs to go back to the applicant to submit additional information. And so right now, the applications have to get in front of the Landscape Review Committee within 30 days, whether or not, without a completeness review, so whether or not an application's been deemed complete. So that's frustrating for everybody if there's something missing and this has to get in front of the committee in a certain amount of time, and there's information missing that's needed to do an efficient and thorough review of the application. So essentially the administrative review process would, since there's not a regular meeting that has to be scheduled and people to be convened, there's no completeness review process that would be scheduled. We get a plan in, we'd look at it, we'd let the applicant know if there's something that needs to be addressed to make the application compliant. Whereas in the alternative discretionary review process, if an applicant wanted to go that route, there would be a streamlined completeness review process. We'd make sure we have everything we need before that gets scheduled and put in front of the landscape review committee. And so that goes to point 3 here, basically clearer, more specific submission requirements for what needs to be on a landscape plan to process those, make sure we continue to meet those objectives of the quality and character of growth and development while making sure we do it in an efficient manner. By way of a little background, this again did go to the Planning Commission back in November. At that time, they unanimously recommended that the proposal move forward. There was no public testimony, and it's especially with the first phase of this work, it's about process and clarifying submittal requirements. And there was not a lot of debate or discussion before the Planning Commission recommended approval. There was no public testimony. Back in January, this initially was scheduled on the council's agenda, and at that time it included both phases of work that were reviewed and recommended by the Planning Commission to look at both the procedures and updating the standards of the landscape code. We thought the work on the standards needed a little more internal coordination, so recommended that the work be split so that we can bring this forward to achieve the efficiencies while we continue to work with our internal partners to finalize the appropriate standards. So that will be coming to you in the near future for phase 2. What's before you here with this ordinance is the first phase of that, those 3 items that I mentioned. Creating a two-path system, creating revising the completeness review procedures, and then revising the submittal requirements. So again, as a legislative land use process, the zoning ordinance specifies the options that are available to the City Council upon receipt of a recommendation from the Planning Commission. That's to adopt the ordinance as presented, to adopt the ordinance in an amended form, to refuse to adopt the amendment through a vote to deny, or to call for a public hearing on the proposal subject to the requirements, which includes noticing as specified in the zoning ordinance. So based on the work to date and the broad support, we're recommending that the council, as recommended by the Planning Commission, that the council adopt ordinance 5156, amending those provisions in chapter 1757 of the dealing with landscape plans in the zoning ordinance. And be happy to answer any questions you have. And there's some additional information. Taylor included the PowerPoint information in your packet, and there's some additional slides there that go into more detail. If you'd like more information, I'd be happy to go through that. Otherwise, I'll keep it brief.
Okay. Any counselors have any questions? Did you have one, Dan?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Okay.
I was going to make a motion.
Why don't you do it together?
Go.
I move that we accept ordinance number 5156 as submitted by the Planning Commission.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Counselor Payne and a second from Counselor Tukalski.
We're supposed to read that for the motion.
Are we fine with her motion? Do you want her to read it out? Let's just read it.
Based on the findings of fact, the conclusionary findings for approval, and the materials recommended by the Planning Commission and submitted by staff, I move to adopt ordinance number 5156.
Second.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Payne?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Nay.
Council President Peralta?
Aye.
The motion has passed with dissent of 5-1, and will be brought back for a second reading at the May 27th City Council meeting.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on and consider the first reading with a possible second reading of Ordinance 5161. Does any counselor need to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest or recuse themselves regarding this ordinance? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call on City Attorney David Langberg.
This is the first reading of ordinance number 5161, an ordinance amending chapter 2.21 of the McMinnville Municipal Code to adopt procedures for surplus and sale of personal property owned by the city. And I'm also set up to present.
Okay. Go right ahead.
All right. At this point, you are all, at least to a certain degree, familiar with the public contracting code. One of the nuances that does not get brought up in public contracting very often is the fact that cities don't just buy things, sometimes they sell them. And that's not called out explicitly in the public contracting code. Because it's not explicit, it follows all the same standards that we use for purchasing, which is unwieldy for the selling that we do have from time to time and have in mind from time to time. Accordingly, there are some League of Cities recommendations for surplus and sale of personal property, and staff is now recommending that you adopt those. It's a fairly simple procedure that allows a number of reasonable options for calling personal property within the city's surplus and then finding a way to efficiently and to the best benefit of the city sell or divest from that personal property. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. We're going to start with Councilor Chenoweth.
I have a couple. With the purchase, there's limitations on anything that can be purchased. It has to, if it goes over a certain dollar amount, it has to come before the city. And if this was in the packet and I missed it, please forgive me. However, is there the same limitation on the sale of property?
That's an excellent question. It's in there, but you'd have to blink and you'll miss it. According to the proposed rule for naming property surplus, that can be done. An item can be declared surplus by any department head or the city manager by way of a form approved by the Director of Finance within limits set by resolution of the City Council. So what would happen is if this ordinance were made code, we would come back with a resolution that would say department heads are allowed to declare items surplus up to this dollar value. The city manager is allowed to declare surplus up to this dollar value, and beyond this dollar value, items come to council.
And that, assuming this passes, that will be a necessary follow-up.
That's absolutely right. This will not be effective until that occurs.
Okay. And then, does this include real property, such as real estate?
No, it specifically does not. The definition of personal property is that which is not real property.
Do we have a way to get rid of or sell excess real property?
Not contemplated here.
Do we have one already on the books or no?
We don't have a personally adopted one. We use the codes as they exist for surplus of real property.
So we can sell it, it just depends on the circumstances.
Right, we are able to sell real property. That's totally separate from this.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So my question is financially based. So if Public Works has surplus, does the funds go to Public Works? Or does it go to the general fund? Whose budget does it go back to?
I think that depends on, I would need to understand this from the finance perspective, but I think that depends on where the particular item currently exists. For example, this largely deals with vehicles. Those vehicles have been bought and are amortizing according to a schedule that exists within a particular fund. As they go, it will be in that same fund.
Which makes sense to me.
Depending on
whoever
where they
purchased it to start with should get the money back. So, perfect. Any other questions? All right. Somebody want to make a motion?
I would move to approve ordinance 5161.
Second.
I have a motion from Counselor Gary and a second from Counselor Payne. Can you take a roll call?
Recognizing no further discussion, Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Payne?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
And Council President Peralta?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Ordinance number 5161 passes on its first reading unanimously.
So we can go for a second reading by title only?
This is the second reading of ordinance number 5161, an ordinance amending Chapter 2.21 of the McMinnville Municipal Code to adopt procedures for surplus and sale of personal property owned by the city.
Any discussion? Have a motion?
So moved.
So I have a motion from Counselor Chenoweth and a second from Counselor Peralta. Any further discussion? Claudia?
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Payne?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
And Council President Peralta?
Aye.
Ordinance number 5161 is adopted unanimously.
Great, thank you. I will now adjourn the city council meeting at 9:30 PM.